This masterpiece, alongside Solo Leveling, is hailed as one of the twin pillars of Korean webtoons. Fans often say, for pure adrenaline, read Solo Leveling; for masterful storytelling, read Omniscient reader's Viewpoint. The so-called Omniscient is a special ability possessed by the protagonist Dokja. This ability comes from a novel, 3 Ways to Survive in a Doomed World. The author had updated thousands of chapters, but viewership plummeted after chapter 50. By the 100th chapter, Dokja was the only reader left. Despite having just 1 viewer, the author continued updating tirelessly. Dokja followed this novel from high school into adulthood, until his 28th birthday, when the novel finally reached its conclusion. But when he eagerly clicked on the final chapter, he found only a few lines. This novel is a gift for you. I believe you, as the reader, can survive. At the same time, the author sent him an email. Dear reader, this work will become subscription-based in 5 minutes, which will help you. Dokja curiously returned to the table of contents, to find the novel had indeed been taken down. While the email attachment contained the original novel, as he was pondering whether this was a bit stingy, the subway car lights suddenly dimmed, followed by a harsh scraping sound as the train mysteriously stopped. Passengers in the carriage fell into panic. Only Dokja felt a jolt in his heart, recognizing the scene as identical to the novel's opening. As if confirming his suspicions, a ghostly flame appeared at the front of the carriage. Then a stuffed toy emerged from it, speaking in childish tones. Some people thought it was a performance and started recording with their phones. The toy tried to explain something but, repeatedly interrupted, finally lost patience. It pointed at the closest man, who instantly exploded. Then one by one, the heads of those who wouldn't stop talking exploded, watching blood spray throughout the carriage. Dokja was certain that the novel he'd followed for 10 years had now manifested in reality. The stuffed toy was called a goblin in the novel, the origin of all tragedy. Though it controlled life and death, it was merely a live stream moderator. Its job was to start live streaming on Earth for the constellation's entertainment. At this moment, a man approached the toy, thinking it was a terrorist attack. He offered cash and bank cards, trying to bribe whoever was controlling the toy. The toy snapped its fingers in response, turning his savings to ashes. Then, with a grotesque face, it said, "Since you all don't understand the situation, I'll have to speed things up." The horn on its head began to buzz. A mechanical voice announced, "Full spectrum live streaming channel open. Constellations entering the channel." Simultaneously, a panel appeared before everyone. It showed they must kill at least 1 living being within half an hour, or die. While people were still skeptical, suddenly someone stepped forward. He displayed his military officer ID, an army lieutenant. He said he'd just received word from his unit. The nation had issued a level 1 disaster warning, ordering all military personnel to assemble, indicating similar events were happening nationwide. This made the already restless crowd even more agitated. But what surprised Dokja was something else. Army Lieutenant Hyunseo Lee was a major supporting character in the novel, now appearing in reality. He clearly remembered Hyunseo Lee only appeared after the first main mission, after the protagonist's debut. So where was the protagonist now? Dokja wanted to review the novel to confirm, but his phone showed the work no longer existed. He finally understood what becoming subscription-based meant. Fortunately, he had the original document in his email. As he clicked to receive the file, the notification panel displayed exclusive attribute acquired, exclusive skill slot activated. This too was part of the novel's plot. In this killing broadcast, humans were called survivors. Based on their performance, survivors could receive points from Constellation's donations, allowing them to obtain items or exclusive skills. Dokja tried to check his skills, but was told they weren't activated yet. Confused, he decided to browse the novel, because he didn't remember the early chapters clearly and many details differed from reality. Just then, the system prompted, exclusive trait, reading speed increased. Instantly, countless text information appeared in his mind. In less than a minute, he'd read the first half of the novel and found the answers he sought. In the novel, the protagonist first appeared in carriage 30,707, while his carriage was 3,807, right next to the protagonist's. Realizing this, his heart sank, because according to the novel, only 2 people survived in this carriage, one being the army lieutenant. As he was looking for the other survivor, his colleague Song Ga-yu showed him her phone, displaying a live broadcast from the Blue House. The president was telling everyone this was just a terrorist attack. Military forces had been deployed, asking everyone to remain calm. As soon as he finished speaking, his head exploded. Then the toy appeared in the broadcast, its face completely distorted. Because 3 minutes had passed without anyone dying, the constellations were displeased and demanded progress. So the toy snapped its fingers, reducing the countdown to 10 minutes. Adding a punishment, if no killing occurred within 5 minutes, everyone would die. As soon as it finished speaking, the carriage erupted into chaos. A white-haired man acted first, trying to beat an elderly woman who had just given him her seat. His clothes bore a school badge reading, Namun Kim. Dokja remembered he was the other survivor besides the lieutenant. If events followed the novel, everyone else would die here. However, no one dared stop the white-haired man. Some even joined in, kicking and punching the old woman. Nearby, Hyunseo Lee clenched his fists, but ultimately didn't intervene. Song Ga-yu tried to reason with them, but Dokja pulled her back, knowing knowing she had no name in the book. Going would only mean death. Dokja Kim told her to stay put, then turned toward the crowd. His earlier inaction wasn't out of fear or agreement with their behavior. He was simply waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, an explosion came from the neighboring carriage, making the subway shake violently. Dokja Kim seized the opportunity to charge at the white-haired man, ramming into him, sending him flying several meters to crash heavily against the door. The white-haired man thought Jin was competing for the victim and cursed loudly. However, Dokja Kim was just looking around anxiously, searching for something. Finally, his gaze locked onto a small boy. He rushed to the boy, apologizing as he grabbed the transparent box from the child's chest, then reached into the box, gave something back to the boy, then turned to shout at everyone. Stop! Even without killing people, there's a way to survive. These words struck like thunder, making everyone freeze. Dokja Kim explained, have you forgotten? The condition isn't to kill a person, but to kill at least one living being. Then he held up the grasshopper in his hand, saying, insects are living beings too. You understand what I mean? Seeing the insect box in his hand, everyone suddenly realized, rushing forward frantically. Watching their crazed behavior, Dokja Kim smiled. The feeling of controlling others excited him strangely. He crushed the grasshopper without hesitation, then threw the insect box into the air. The notification panel displayed, first kill achievement unlocked, 100 points awarded. Seeing this, people scrambled on the ground looking for grasshoppers. With only 3 minutes remaining, the white-haired man asked puzzledly, couldn't you just hand over the insects? Why make everyone fight for them? Dokja Kim calmly replied, because there are only 3 left in the box. After hearing this, the white-haired man laughed. So you're the same kind of person as me. You enjoy watching others tear each other apart, right? I like that too. If there aren't enough insects, I'll just kill some unfortunate person. Looking at his psychotic expression, Dokja Kim thought, that's right, Nam Moon Kim in the novel is exactly this type of person. Brutal and without principles, also the person most rewarded by constellations in the early stages. Just then, a notification sounded. Your understanding of character Nam Moon Kim has increased, triggering exclusive skill, character profile activated. Then, a panel appeared in front of Nam Moon Kim. Name, Nam Moon Kim, age, 19, support constellation, none. Currently 2 constellations interested in this character. Exclusive attribute, Chunabu, exclusive skills, dagger attack, and Grimdark Awakening, recommendation, avoid association. But then, Nam Moon Kim sent him a team invitation, feeling they had good chemistry. The notification sounded, Nam Moon Kim has shown goodwill toward you. Your understanding of him has increased. Dokja Kim felt helpless. When reading the book, he hated Nam Moon Kim the most. Each appearance made him seem like a psychopath, but because of his considerable strength, the protagonist recruited him, giving him significant screen time early on. Thinking of this, Dokja Kim coldly refused. Nam Moon Kim said nothing more, walking around him, heading toward the old woman, intending to complete his survival task. But Dokja Kim grabbed his hand again. Nam Moon Kim said, I'm warning you not to provoke me or I'll beat you too. The notification sounded, Nam Moon Kim shows contempt toward you. His goodwill toward you has decreased. Before Dokja Kim could respond, Nam Moon Kim's fist was already in front of him. At that moment, the system notification panel appeared. Understanding of Nam Moon Kim increased. Exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, first stage use conditions met. As the skill activated, Dokja Kim seemed to share a mental connection with Nam Moon Kim, slightly shifting his posture to dodge the attack. Nam Moon Kim clearly hadn't expected him to evade, angrily throwing consecutive punches. Yet Dokja Kim could predict all his movements in advance. No matter how fierce the attack, he could dodge it. Now only 2 minutes remained until the task deadline. Nam Moon Kim went completely berserk, turning his attention to the elderly woman on the ground. He pulled out a dagger from his clothes, aiming directly at the old woman's heart, even knowing the attack trajectory in advance. Dokja Kim was a step too slow. The dagger sliced his arm before embedding in the floor. A burning sensation spread from the wound. It was Nam Moon Kim's skill, Grimdark Awakening. While he was still pulling out the dagger, Dokja Kim picked up the old woman to escape. But as soon as he stood up, his legs began trembling uncontrollably. He was just an ordinary person. His body had reached its limit. Seeing Nam Moon Kim approaching step by step, he suddenly made a certain resolution. This old woman couldn't complete the task and would die when time ran out. Rather than this useless pretense of kindness, he should invest the opportunity in himself. So he slowly stood up, took out the crushed grasshopper from his pocket, and squeezed its abdomen even harder. A faint popping sound came from his hand. He had crushed the insect eggs in the grasshopper's abdomen. Then the notification sounded, killed 1 living being, awarded 100 points. You have received an additional reward. Do you want to listen to the points usage tutorial? Dokja Kim skipped it directly and invested 2,700 points in stamina. His stamina level jumped to 10 when Nam Moon Kim's dagger struck. It made a crisp sound like hitting a steel plate, startling him into retreating half a step, not understanding what happened. Dokja Kim showed a sinister expression without bothering to explain, because only 1 minute remained until the task ended. Nam Moon Kim attacked frantically like a madman, but his stamina was only level 3. With each slash, he drew closer to death. As the countdown reached 0, everyone who hadn't completed the task had their heads explode. The broadcast announced that this subway train had 6 final survivors. 5 people survived in Dokja Kim's carriage. They were Hyunseo Lee, Sanga Yu, Myungo Han, and the little boy. Myungo Han was the rich uncle who had luckily caught an insect. Then came the task point settlement. Dokja Kim had the most points, killing a total of 124 living beings. But since they were all defenseless beings, his points were reduced by half. After deducting the points invested in physical physical ability, he had 4,700 remaining. As the subway exited the tunnel, sunlight illuminated the entire carriage. Only then did they see the outside world was an even more terrifying scene. Massive monsters had occupied the city, and human armies were powerless against them. At that moment, a monster leaped out of the river, dozens of meters long. Dokja Kim had seen it in the novel. This monster was called a Yoo Long, classified as a level 7 beast in the novel's world. It didn't attack the subway, because in the novel's world, main missions took priority over everything else, a form of newbie protection. Now, the toy appeared in the carriage again, looking very pleased, because there were now 21 constellations in the livestream. For a novice goblin like him, this was an impressive number. Sang-Yu came to Dokja Kim's side, thanking him for throwing the box near her. Dokja Kim said it was just a coincidence. His choices had let people who should have died survive, and those who should have lived die. He wasn't sure if this was good or bad. As a reward for completing the first task, the toy announced they had qualified for constellation sponsorship. This sponsorship meant choosing a constellation to receive a portion of its power and support. 4 constellations showed goodwill toward Dokja Kim, but to avoid opponents discovering their true names, they used code names. Survivors had to interpret these code names, trying to deduce their true identities. For Dokja Kim, he could see through all these constellations' true names at a glance. First was the Black Flame Dragon of the Abyss, a powerful entity leading the Black Cloud Constellation organization. Signing a contract with this constellation would guarantee powerful combat protection. But this was limited to the early stages. The more balanced one's use of this constellation's power, the more severe the contamination. So Dokja Kim eliminated this option immediately. The second was the Demonic Fire Judge, a constellation emanating evil aura. This name contained fire and judge. Its true name was Lilith, the archangel who judges with fire. Though a good option, Dokja Kim decided to reserve judgment, because constellations of the absolute good faction, despite their powerful abilities, often came with many inexplicable restrictions. The third was the Secret Strategist, a code name he'd never seen, meaning it might be a constellation only mentioned in passing in the novel, likely not very powerful. But when he saw the last option, Dokja Kim's heart began racing uncontrollably. He never expected this constellation to extend an invitation so early. The Prisoner of the Tight Bind, representing the only god living in shackles, Monkey King with his fiery golden eyes. In the novel, someone who accepted his sponsorship quickly rose to become a top-tier powerhouse. If he chose him as his support constellation, could he surpass that person? Just then, the notification sounded, "Support constellation selection complete. Proceeding to next task in 10 minutes." At that moment, an explosion came from the carriage behind them, followed by a series of door-kicking sounds, as if something was about to break in. Dokja Kim finally realized something was wrong. He'd forgotten a crucial person, the novel's protagonist. He quickly urged everyone to leave. Otherwise, given that man's personality, they would all die here. Though the others were confused, given Dokja Kim's previous performance, they hurried to find the door switch. Sang-Yu discovered the door ahead had opened a crack, but not enough for someone to pass through. Dokja Kim still had 4,700 points, though he could use coins to increase attributes to open the door. The second task might be even more dangerous, so he looked at Hyunseo Lee beside him, asking him to use his newly acquired skill. Using character profile activated, Dokja Kim could see Hyunseo Lee's support constellation was the Master of Steel. With the Star Mark skill forced to move mountains, handling a steel door would be effortless. Hyunseo Lee did as told, his muscles rapidly expanding. Green energy enveloped his body as he easily pulled the door open. The goblin was angry seeing them leave early, but for the sake of ratings, it soon issued the second task. This task was relatively easy. Cross the broken bridge to reach the other side within 20 minutes. Sang-Yu found it strange. Though described as broken, the bridge was intact. Dokja Kim told her to ignore this and run quickly. Because they had left the subway early, the bridge hadn't broken yet. As he predicted, a massive whirlpool appeared on the river's surface. The next second, a Yoo Long the size of an aircraft carrier leaped out of the water, opening its bloody mouth to crash into the bridge. Dokja Kim knew it wouldn't attack survivors, only destroy the bridge. So he urged everyone to keep running without stopping. The toy laughed. If the game were this simple, wouldn't it be too boring? Saying this, it snapped its fingers, raising the task difficulty to D level. At the same time, a black mist released around them. Corpses touched by it stood up as if injected with energy. Hyunseo Lee, with the best physical condition, carried the boy to the end point, while Dokja Kim and 2 others were surrounded by demons from front and back. Just then, the Yoo Long bit off part of the bridge, creating a gap dozens of meters wide. As he pondered how to cross, the system notified, "Someone has received Constellation's blessing," activating Deus Ex Machina. The next second, an invisible force extended between the broken bridge sections. Heaven Sent Bridge meant a constellation bore enormous loss to gain the right to directly intervene in a task. Dokja Kim was surprised. Who could make a constellation invest so much? He turned to look, just in time to see a panicked Sang-Yu. He tried to use his skill to check her support constellation, but the system indicated the skill had failed because she wasn't a character from the novel. Just then, Sang-Yu warned him to be careful. As she spoke, a fist came from behind. Dokja Kim fell with the momentum, giving his attacker a hard kick. When the dust settled, he saw it was the deceased Namwoon Kim. Normal people who mutated into demons were no different from zombies. But if the host had skills while alive, their combat power would greatly increase. Dokja Kim tried to use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, but was told the opponent had no rationality and couldn't be predicted. He could only rely on his stamina to dodge, quickly becoming breathless, backed into a corner. More critically, the bridge set by Deus Ex Machina was called the Even Bridge. Only an even number of people could cross. While Dokja Kim was distracted, Myung-go-han picked up Sang-yu and ran across. Now to cross the bridge, he would need to subdue a demon to bring along. An impossible task for someone with depleted stamina. Just as he lamented not having combat skills, a huge book suddenly appeared behind him. The system prompted, "Triggered exclusive skill bookmark." The enormous book began turning pages, finally displaying available bookmark slots. 3. Characters already bookmarked. 2. Namely Namwoon Kim and Hyun-seo Lee. Though he hadn't seen this skill before, he seemed to instinctively know how to use it. He activated bookmark number 1. Instantly, all memories of Namwoon Kim flashed through his mind. The system prompted low understanding of this character, only partially activating his skills. Dokja Kim unhesitatingly chose to activate Grimdark Awakening, a purple-black energy wrapping around him. The mutated Namwoon Kim charged. Dokja Kim calmly sidestepped, the dagger's shadow flashing past, delivering a fatal critical hit to Namwoon Kim. However, bookmark duration was limited. Facing endless demons, he would eventually be overwhelmed. Just then, a violent explosion rang out, making all demons stop. When the explosion subsided, a man walked forward with steady steps. The man had a gloomy expression, light flashing in his eyes. It was the novel's protagonist, Yoo Joonghyuk. Dokja Kim didn't dare have any desire to fight, only quickly using character profile activated. The system prompted, "This character has too much information, only summary browsing available." But before he could finish reading, a large hand appeared before him, gripping his neck. Having read the book, Dokja Kim knew the early stage Yoo Joonghyuk was more dangerous than anyone. Having experienced 3 cycles, he had lost emotional fluctuations toward everything. Any suspicious objects would be eliminated by him. And now, that object was Dokja Kim. The system suddenly prompted, "Your understanding of character Yoo Joonghyuk has reached a fairly high level." Unlocking Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint second stage. The next second, Dokja Kim seemed to possess mind-reading abilities, easily seeing through Yoo Joonghyuk's thoughts. In his perspective, Dokja Kim faced world-changing events, yet remained calm. Behavior unlike a non-player character, which Yoo Joonghyuk saw as dangerous. So a golden light flashed in his eyes. The SS skill, Sage's Eye. Not only could it see the opponent's attribute window, but even glimpse hidden information. The pinnacle of reconnaissance skills. But suddenly the system prompted, triggering exclusive skill, the fourth wall, directly reflecting the Sage's Eye back. Faced with this unexpected change, Yoo Joonghyuk's veins bulged. Only the prophet could nullify his skill. His suspicions grew stronger. His grip tightened. With his life hanging by a thread, Dokja Kim had to play his trump card, pretending to be the prophet. Dokja Kim said, "You can't complete task number 46, you know that, right?" As soon as he spoke, Yoo Joonghyuk indeed showed a surprised expression. The prophet was an extremely rare constellation, with only one incarnation currently on Earth. So he activated his lie detection skill. After confirming Dokja Kim spoke the truth, he pulled him back from the bridge's edge. With little time left on the countdown, if they didn't leave, he would also face sanctions. Now with 2 people, they just met the even bridge's passage requirements. Dokja Kim sighed in relief. But unexpectedly, due to exhaustion, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint suddenly deactivated. He had a bad feeling. Sure enough, just steps away from the endpoint. Yoo Joonghyuk stopped and said, "Let me ask you one last question." Before Dokja Kim could react, he was grabbed and lifted again. A Yulong below opened its mouth wide, seemingly waiting to be fed. Yoo Joonghyuk said, "Since you're the prophet, do you think I'll let go of my hand now or not?" Dokja Kim cursed inwardly, psychopath. Unable to activate his skill, he could only guess based on his understanding from reading the novel. Dokja Kim said, "Let me make 2 points clear. First, I'm not your subordinate. I hope you understand what cooperation means. Second, throw me down if you want, because either way I'll survive." Yoo Joonghyuk showed a rare smile, but his hand slowly released. He said, "I believe you're the prophet now, but first prove you can survive." The next second, the Yulong's mouth closed, swallowing him into its stomach along with a large amount of seawater. Fortunately, the Yulong's stomach was large enough. After surfacing, he found various debris around him, including many human corpses. Before he could identify them, the surrounding water suddenly began to churn, a sign the Yulong was starting to move. In the novel's description, Yulong would begin secreting gastric acid 3 hours after eating. Just as he was contemplating countermeasures, a light suddenly appeared behind him. The goblin had teleported over. Dokja Kim had failed the broken bridge task, so it came to punish him. He now had 2 choices, either be killed or surrender all his points. However, Dokja Kim ignored it, saying, "Kill me if you can." The toy thought it had misheard, but then heard Dokja Kim call out its name, Lower Goblin Beijing. "The constellations are so stingy with tips now. Are you still happy being a live broadcaster?" Beijing looked shocked. How could a mere human know its name? Even the constellations watching the broadcast perked up. But Dokja Kim said, "Turn off the broadcast before we talk." Beijing, uncertain of his background, complied. The current broadcast was called Starflow Broadcasting, the whole system equivalent to modern broadcast platforms. Viewers were constellations from across the galaxy, performers were humans, and Goblin was live broadcaster. Dokja Kim didn't answer its confusion, instead asking a question. "Don't you want to become the Goblin King? Don't you want to surpass Unicorn and Jita to become the most powerful streamer?" As he spoke, Beijing's eyes cleared for a moment, but then it burst into laughter, saying, "No wonder you rejected all constellations during the sponsorship selection. You wanted to recruit me as your backing." Dokja Kim interrupted, "I don't need you, I need your channel. I want to sign an exclusive streaming contract with your channel. Here Hearing this, Baijing was stunned. Streaming contracts usually existed only between goblins and constellations. Constellations would sponsor certain humans to become their avatars. They themselves would become support constellations, and the avatar's points earned in broadcasts would be the goblin's profit. Baijing said with murderous intent, "Though I don't know how you know all this, but as someone without even a support constellation, what qualifies you to sign a contract with me?" But Dokja Kim remained calm, saying, "It's precisely because I have no support constellation that I have value. Constellations enter broadcast rooms for only two purposes: entertainment or finding avatars. To become a famous broadcaster, you must satisfy one. And if someone without a support constellation shows abilities surpassing avatars, wouldn't such a broadcast room become a hit?" Baijing suddenly realized Dokja Kim was a huge business opportunity. His confrontation with Yoo Joonghyuk had already made viewership soar. Thinking of this, it hurriedly opened the broadcast. Sure enough, many constellations were impatient, curious about Dokja Kim's situation. At the same time, the system displayed information: triggering donation task, escape from the Yulong's stomach and kill the Yulong. Time limit, 10 days. Failure consequence, death. Dokja Kim decisively accepted the task, wanting to show Yoo Joonghyuk he could not only survive, but gain power surpassing him. Then he asked Baijing to open the shop, the goblin's exclusive store for purchasing items or enhancing attributes. He searched for the ancient dragon's heart, and as expected, it was sold out. This heart possessed nearly infinite magical power, obtained by an Italian in the novel. Despite opening the shop early, it had still been taken. Finally, he could only buy 4 spikes and several bags of mucus, consuming 800 points. Baijing solemnly told him, "Whether we can sign a contract depends on whether you can survive this time. Don't disappoint me." Saying this, it snapped its fingers and disappeared. Dokja Kim checked the time. It was almost when the Yulong would secrete gastric acid. He evenly coated the mucus on the spikes. To avoid being digested by gastric acid, he could only cling to the monster's stomach wall, living off half-digested remains. 4 days passed in a flash, finally killing the monster by attrition. The system prompted, "Successfully hunted level 7 sea beast, awarded 9,000 points." Dokja Kim collapsed exhausted. At that moment, a light appeared overhead. Baijing appeared, exclaiming in surprise, "You killed the Yulong with just these?" Dokja Kim had limited points, only enough to exchange for stone pig spikes and seahorse mucus. These two items seemed very basic, but stone pigs fed on small sea beasts. Their spikes, when inserted into prey, caused excessive bleeding. Seahorses were Yulong food, naturally evolving resistance to Yulong gastric acid. So he poured seahorse mucus over himself, then inserted stone pig spikes into the Yulong's stomach wall blood vessels. He just had to wait for the Yulong to bleed to death to escape. The only unexpected part was that this wait lasted 4 days, nearly starving himself to death. Baijing nodded admiringly, then displayed a streaming contract. Dokja Kim only needed to sign to become Baijing's exclusive broadcaster. Though he could no longer choose a support constellation, getting a share of broadcast profits was something many dreamed of. But instead of signing right away, Dokja Kim pointed to the last clause and asked, "Why isn't the revenue split written down?" Baijing replied nervously, "According to the rules in our industry, the donations that constellations earn from having their avatars perform on goblin channels are split 50 to 50. Dokja Kim interrupted, "I don't have a support constellation, me. Constellations who donate to avatars without support constellation need to pay goblins an extra fee, right? You make quite a profit just from collecting those fees. So I'll take 100% of the donations, and you get." Baijing was so angry he nearly cracked his molars, but there was nothing he could do about it. After Dokja Kim killed the Yulong, he had gained popularity among the constellations, and could easily stream with other goblins. Baijing had no choice but to agree that all profits would go to Dokja Kim, and even paid an additional 5,000 points as a signing fee. Only then was Dokja Kim satisfied and came ashore. As soon as he stepped onto land, a series of notifications appeared before his eyes. "You have entered the second main storyline area. This area has been severely contaminated. Please evacuate to underground shelter as soon as possible." The next second, Dokja Kim's facial skin showed signs of corrosion. But as the novel's only reader, this little difficulty was easy to solve. He just needed to exchange for an Elaine monkey's lung to hold in his mouth, which would grant immunity to contamination for 20 minutes. During this window, he went to a nearby supermarket and helped himself to some food. As he finished packing and prepared to leave, he found a dying woman behind the shelves. He carried her on his back and rushed to the nearest subway station. However, all entrances were sealed with roller shutters, but he could hear footsteps inside. Dokja Kim called out tentatively, "Open the door quickly, someone's injured here." But the people inside replied, "Get lost, we're already at capacity in here." Dokja Kim had no choice but to resort to violence. He used his spikes to force open the roller shutters. After the system notified him that he had entered a safe zone, he put the Ellen monkey's lung into the woman's mouth to purify some of the contamination in her body. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, dozens of people with clubs surrounded him. Their leader was a man in a suit who said, "Kid, leave the woman and food behind. Then get out. That way I'll spare your life." Dokja Kim heard his subordinates call him Tai Zhu. Recalling the characters in the book, he couldn't remember anyone by that name. It seemed he was just an extra. At that moment, a notification popped up in the live stream. The prisoner of the tight bind is irritated by the appearance of thugs. The demonic fire judge expresses anger towards the unjust. At the request of the constellations, a bounty mission has been triggered. Please incapacitate them within the time limit of 5 minutes. Dokja Kim immediately threw a punch that sent Taiju flying into the wall. As for the other thugs, Dokja Kim quickly defeated them all. Although Dokja Kim had no support constellation, his physical strength and agility stats combined reached 33. The gap in combat power between him and these thugs was enormous. But Taiju kept taunting, "We're the same kind of people. Looking at your methods, you must have killed quite a few people too." Just as Dokja Kim was about to speak, a notification appeared. The fourth wall has blocked Taiju's bluff. So this Taiju already had support constellation and had gained the exclusive skill Bluff. Dokja Kim remembered this constellation called King of Vermin was notorious for torturing its avatars. So instead of killing him, Dokja Kim pinned him to the wall with spikes and then kicked him viciously dozens of times. When the mission countdown ended, not only did he receive the completion reward, but also 100 points donated by the King of Vermin. Afterward, he carried the woman to the refuge deep within the subway station. Unexpectedly, he met Sangha-yu and other companions there. But before they could celebrate their reunion, they were surrounded by another group. A man stepped forward from the crowd and said, "My name is Cheon Renhao. May I ask your honorable name?" Dokja Kim had seen this name in the original novel, someone with support constellation. He was the leader of this refuge, and Taiju was probably one of his subordinates. Dokja Kim was prepared for battle, but Cheon Renhao suddenly told his followers, "Lower your weapons. Everyone, come quick. Thank this brave new member for bringing us food." Dokja Kim learned from Hyunseo Lee that there were currently 87 people at Jinhu Station divided into mainstream and marginal factions. Every so often, both sides would send people out to search for food, but the food brought back would be distributed by the mainstream faction. Dokja Kim certainly wasn't willing to go along with this. Cheon Renhao smiled and said, "You're a hero who saved humans from monster claws. Since you possess this power, helping everyone is your duty." At Jinhu Station, there were not only thugs but also elderly and children, all looking expectantly in his direction. But Dokja Kim remained unmoved. He took Sangha-yu and the others to a corner and said, "You must be hungry. Take one each." He wasn't stingy with those who had shared hardships with him, but this also provoked public anger. "Are you really going to hoard the food? Since you've entered this refuge, you should hand the food over to Mr. Cheon Renhao for fair distribution." At this moment, Dokja Kim deeply realized that in this world of extinction, the real danger wasn't thugs like Taiju, but rather those who manipulated people from behind the scenes. Now he had two choices: share the food and be a hero, or keep it and be a villain. Before he could decide, Cheon Renhao stepped forward and said, "Everyone, calm down. Mr. Dokja Kim has already decided to join us, and of course the food will be distributed fairly. And he has also agreed to work for everyone in the future." Before he could finish, Dokja Kim interrupted him. "I'll distribute food to everyone, but not for free. You can exchange points for it, 50 points per item." Everyone was stunned, including Sangha-yu and Hyunseo Lee. Only the woman Dokja Kim had brought back stood by his side. The woman was called Zheng Shiyuan, who was abandoned by her companions while searching for food, so she understood how precious food was. She said, "Wake up everyone. Why should you get to eat for free what others risked their lives to find?" Sangha-yu and Hyunseo Lee were filled with shame. The young Lee Jiang was the first to react. He paid Dokja Kim for the food he had just eaten. Their fingertips touched, and the points transferred to Dokja Kim's account, though he only took 10 points as a discount for friends. Sangha-yu and Hyunseo Lee also paid and bought some more food. The rest of the people were still hesitating. Hyunseo Lee worried this would provoke anger again, but Dokja Kim reassured him that people would buy it. Sure enough, when they woke up the next morning, several bags of food had sold out, and Dokja Kim had earned 1,450 points. But before he could celebrate, Cheon Renhao announced to everyone, "Starting today, we will no longer distribute food. Yesterday, I learned a principle from Mr. Dokja Kim. There's no such thing as a free lunch. If you want food, you must offer something of value in exchange." "Thank you, Mr. Dokja Kim." In an instant, Dokja Kim became the target of everyone's resentment. However, when midnight came, a flash of light appeared in the subway station. Just as Dokja Kim had predicted, a goblin appeared before everyone again. But this time, it wasn't Bai Jing. It said Bai Jing had been imprisoned for violations, and it will temporarily manage this streaming channel. Then it snapped its fingers and confiscated everyone's food. It felt Bai Jing had been too gentle with these people, which made for poor entertainment. So it decided to increase the difficulty. From now on, everyone would need to pay 100 points in survival fees at midnight each day, or die. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd erupted in chaos. Only Dokja Kim had a smile on his face. This was how the novel should be. Although he had read the novel and knew the food would be confiscated, he hadn't expected a survival fee to be added. Could it be that his contract with Bai Jing had caused the timeline to change? But the most important thing now was to find food. Dokja Kim rallied everyone to the subway tunnel. Now that food had disappeared, monster meat was the only thing they could eat. Just as they were about to set off, Cheon Renhao stopped them. He wasn't opposing their departure, but wanted to add Myungo Han to the team. Dokja Kim knew his intention, nominally sending help, but actually planting a spy. At this point, the system prompted, "Understanding of the character Cheon Renhao has increased. From the current intelligence, gaining a novel character's favor and trust, or guessing their inner thoughts, satisfying either would increase understanding." Myungo Han was still as cowardly as ever. Seeing corpses all over the tunnel, he immediately hid behind Sangha-yu. Dokja Kim thought he wouldn't be much threat, so turned to Lee Jiang and asked him to use his skill. Lee Jiang placed both hands on the ground, and a green light extended deep into the tunnel, eventually capturing a cockroach. This was his attribute, Insect Collector, allowing simple communication with insects. From the ponytail sprite, they learned the first 100 steps ahead were safe. At this point, Hyunseo Lee touched the black curtain blocking the way. way, triggering a hidden mission: hunt monsters that can serve as food. After cooking, reward 500 points. On the ground ahead were many monster corpses. Dokja recognized them as level 9 mole crickets. Without guessing, he knew only the novel's protagonist Yoo Joonghyuk could easily deal with such group-dwelling monsters. Dokja told everyone not to waste anything and to make weapons from the mole cricket bones. Then he reinforced his attributes, keeping some as survival fees and adding the rest to physical strength and agility. Because the real hunt was about to begin, Hyunseo Lee, acting as a meat shield, charged forward and immediately took one down. Zheng Xiwan was equally impressive. With her inherent lurker attribute, she had a natural advantage in knife combat. Even Lee Jiang quietly provided support from behind. After the battle, Hyunseo Lee calculated that he had killed 4 monsters, even one more than Dokja Kim. Dokja Kim was secretly surprised. When he used the check skill to inspect, he saw that Hyunseo Lee had a newbie package, a gift from his constellation, which significantly boosted his attributes. As everyone was discussing how to cook these mole crickets, Myungo Han suddenly screamed. A mole cricket had bitten his foot. Sangayu, who was closest to him, quickly extended her bone knife, but not only failed to help, she was also dragged down. The next second, both disappeared into the ground. Zheng Xiwan wanted to rescue them, but she hadn't fully recovered from the earlier poisoning. So Dokja Kim asked Hyunseo Lee to take care of her while he and Lee Ji-young went into the cave. This place was called the Edge of Darkness, home to mole crickets. Because darkness swallowed all light, directions were impossible to discern. This was exactly why he needed Lee Ji-young, whose skill could illuminate the surroundings. But Lee Ji-young asked, "Brother Dokja Kim, did you deliberately let that mole cricket escape earlier? Because your face didn't show any change then. You looked quite calm." Dokja Kim broke into a cold sweat. These supporting characters in the novel were really not simple. He had to confess, "Because I know the habits of mole crickets. They put their captives in the same place. Only by following their tunnels can we find them. There's a tool I need at the bottom of this hole, but I didn't expect Sangayu to get involved. That's all." Lee Ji-young held his hand, expressing trust in what he said. Because this behavior pattern was like the protagonist in games he had played. Only the protagonist could lead everyone to clear the stage. Dokja Kim didn't answer. The two continued walking silently forward. Finally, they found a light source ahead. It was a chest guarded by a group of mole crickets, with the captured Myungo Han and Sangayu nearby. Myungo Han was complaining that if he hadn't liked Sangayu, he wouldn't have taken that subway and wouldn't have encountered all this. The argument grew louder and louder. This made Dokja Kim irritable. He drew out a stone pig spike and threw it at Myungo Han, but it wasn't meant to kill him. Rather, it was to draw out the ultimate monster here. The area where the spike hit began to crack. The next second, an immense pressure swept over them. Hidden insects nearby burst apart. The mole crickets trembled and bowed their bodies, as if waiting for their king's arrival. A death mage wearing a cloak emerged from the wall. At the same time, everyone received a task update. Dungeon mission updated: expel the Dark Guardian. Dokja Kim quickly rescued the two and led them away from the monster. This was a demonic lord-level monster that could absorb sacrifices from other monsters to enhance its strength. Dokja Kim wanted to separate it from the mole cricket swarm, but he didn't expect this creature to immediately unleash mental pollution. Although his exclusive skill Fourth Wall neutralized most of the horror, this only made the Guardian more excited. A huge roar echoed throughout the space. At this point, Sangayu's translation skill triggered. She told Dokja Kim the monster regarded him as its mother. Then the Guardian pointed at Myungo Han, wanting him to be the father. Dokja Kim was confused by this perverted monster, but suddenly tentacles extended from behind the Guardian, instantly penetrating Myungo Han's mouth for a nucleic acid test. Turned out it wanted to implant its offspring in other species. Dokja Kim decisively cut off the tentacle. In pain, the Guardian entered a berserk state, frantically swinging 7 or 8 tentacles. The bone knives were instantly shattered. Dokja Kim could only dodge while shouting upward, calling for the goblin watching the livestream to appear. The goblin showed an expression of shock identical to Baijing's, saying, "How did you know I was watching?" Dokja Kim directly asked him to take out Baijing's package, which contained his tools. The goblin originally wanted to make things difficult for him, but this immediately aroused the constellation's dissatisfaction. They flooded the chat, complaining he was disrupting the broadcast. Under pressure from the patrons, the goblin had to quickly open the system to find the package Baijing had left. These were items Dokja Kim had exchanged using the Yulong core. Named Broken Faith, it was literally a broken sword. The goblin mocked, "You want to fight with this broken sword? And if I remember correctly, using weapons above D rank requires skills, right?" Dokja Kim knew all this. He had already purchased a skill from the store. As energy was injected into the blade, the broken sword transformed into a lightsaber effect. This was the sword's original form, named Blade of Faith. It was also the most effective weapon against demonic types. However, this alone wasn't enough. In the novel setting, having a divine sword didn't make one a swordsman, and Dokja Kim had no support constellation. Just wielding this sword would drain all his energy, so he wouldn't fight as a swordsman but as a reader. He directly activated the number 2 bookmark representing Hyunseo Lee. The next second, Hyunseo Lee's shadow appeared behind him, allowing use of his skill, weapon training, for 1 minute. And with the Omniscient reader's viewpoint enhancing him, he could perceive the Guardian's attack patterns. After 2 attacks, there would be an opening. Seizing the moment when that opening appeared, Dokja Kim struck with his sword, landing a critical hit. This astonished the constellations, who couldn't believe someone without support constellation could one-shot a late-game boss so early. They sent donations in droves. The goblin was also envious that Baijing's channel had such talent. No wonder all the the constellations had migrated there. He was also curious why Dokja Kim didn't completely kill the Guardian. As the first person to defeat a level 7 demon, he would surely receive a massive point reward. But Dokja Kim dismissed this, asking the goblin to distribute the mission rewards immediately. The task only required repelling the Guardian, which they had accomplished. But just then, Myung-go-han picked up a bone knife and killed the Guardian. He mocked Dokja Kim for not understanding bone knives and let him finish the Guardian off. Just as he thought a windfall was coming his way, the system kindly reminded him, "The Dark Guardian has been killed. The wrathful demon god of desire has noticed your existence." Dokja Kim thought to himself, so this monster belonged to the demon lineage. In the novel's setting, all demons were subordinates of the demon god. This was why he didn't dare deliver the final blow. Then he approached the treasure chest. Inside were 3 rewards: a bracelet that could restore magic, an old shield, and a stove for cooking monsters. Dokja Kim generously distributed them all, because what he wanted was just one thing: the chest itself. In the novel, Yoo Joonghyuk only discovered its wonderful use after the 6th cycle. Put in 2 low-grade items and a random high-grade item would appear. Dokja Kim placed the Guardian's core and broken faith inside. The next second, a purple light burst from the chest. The broken sword restored to its original form. Unbroken faith was once a weapon used by a constellation. When equipped, it increased physical and strength by 2 levels. This made the others, still using bone knives, extremely envious. But as they were about to return, Lee Ji-young shared bad news. All nearby insects had died in the battle, meaning he couldn't scout anymore. However, he sensed one insect still alive in the distance. He then closed his eyes, trying to communicate with it, but he didn't expect it to be a king-level mantis. Seeing the cave begin to shake violently, Dokja Kim quickly told Lee Ji-young to stop. By the time that mantis arrived, they would be buried alive. Fortunately, Sangha-yu discovered her skill had a similar effect. She could generate a glowing silk thread. Following it would lead them out. This made Dokja Kim more curious about her support constellation. Unfortunately, since Sangha-yu wasn't a novel character, Dokja Kim couldn't use character profile activated to get information. Just then, a golden light appeared before them. It was Bai Jing, who had finished his punishment and returned to the live broadcast room. He explained he'd been detained for playing ads for too long, but Dokja Kim was suspicious, feeling there was more to the story. Soon, everyone returned to the subway station, which was now buzzing with noise. Only 20 minutes remained until midnight, and everyone had to pay 100 points or die. Some people were begging Qian Renhao's organization, as he had promised points to anyone who joined the reconnaissance team. But now, they were denying it. Seeing these people's shameless behavior, Zheng Xiwan gripped her weapon. The system prompted that Zheng Xiwan's attribute was about to evolve, but before she could act, Qian Renhao suddenly appeared behind the crowd and activated his incitement skill. He stated that Dokja Kim now had the most points and should help everyone through this crisis. These words instantly silenced the crowd. They all turned to Dokja Kim as if seeing a savior. Everyone begged him to sacrifice for the greater good. Several of Qian Renhao's men even drew weapons, ready to take advantage of the situation. But the next second, his arm flew off, cut by Dokja Kim. He coldly looked at the crowd and said, "Most of you who made it here have blood on your hands. No need to pretend anymore. If you truly believe you're the weak ones, then think about this. Jinwu Station started with 87 people, but now only 50 remain. Qian Renhao says they were killed by monsters. But why have none of his men died? And why do they have more and more points?" At these words, some people began to waver. Indeed, just as Dokja Kim said before he arrived, their points had been decreasing daily. Qian Renhao collected points under various pretexts, supposedly to form reconnaissance teams, but they monopolized all the resources obtained. Seeing the moment ripe, Dokja Kim rallied them. "If you have any self-respect left, fight to take back what's yours, because that's the rule of this new world." These words immediately ignited everyone's fighting spirit. They turned fight against Qian Renhao's organization. The scene became extremely chaotic, with even children joining the battle. Zheng Xiwan stabbed a thug's throat with a pole, avenging her earlier humiliation. At that moment, a red light suddenly enveloped her. The system announced, "Evolution condition met. Zheng Xiwan has transformed into the evil eliminator." This shocked Dokja Kim. The evil eliminator was the strongest of the 3 great judges. He never expected a non-player to possess it. Zheng Xiwan closed her eyes and activated the judge mechanism. The next second, the shadow of a scale appeared behind her. As the absolutely good faction of constellations passed their resolution, Zheng Xiwan instantly became a god of death, slaughtering all enemies in just a few breaths. By the time Qian Renhao regained his senses, Zheng Xiwan had placed her blade in front of him. Before he could beg for mercy, his head was split in 2. With Qian Renhao's death, the system began allocating points. Zheng Xiwan was undoubtedly the MVP. She distributed most of the points to others, returning what Qian Renhao had plundered. She also gave Dokja Kim 1,500 points to thank him for saving her life. However, she didn't know that Dokja Kim now possessed a full 20,000 points, due to his streaming contract with Beijing. Just the donations from this battle were enough to upgrade all his attributes. Just then, everyone received the second main mission. Travel through the subway tunnel and meet survivors at the first outpost. Reward 500 points. Though only 3 stations away, the tunnels were filled with mole crickets. After a series of fights, everyone was exhausted, so Dokja Kim had them rest, and he went to the ground surface. Based on his memory of the novel, he approached a statue. Then he closed his eyes and knelt in devotion. Next, he leaped up and sliced the statue in half with his sword. Beijing, who witnessed this, immediately freaked out. "That's a statue symbolizing a constellation. Are you trying to shut down my channel?" But Dokja Kim had no choice. All statues sealed constellation powers. Breaking the seal would grant access to that constellation's skills or tools. But normal unsealing took too long. He had to use the shortcut from the novel. He gave Zheng Xiwan the statue's mat, which could increase justice and willpower, and gave Sangha Yu the prayer beads, which could enhance magic recovery. Then they continued toward the next station. But just then, the system suddenly prompted a new dungeon task. Next, a piercing gale swept through. When Dokja Kim opened his eyes, he saw his mother who had died years ago. Realizing this was an illusion, he immediately activated his exclusive skill, Fourth Wall. His mother's image instantly shattered. He hurriedly told everyone to take deep breaths, but it was too late. Zheng Xiwan suddenly charged forward with her knife. Her eyes were red, a sign of possessed. Affected by her lurker attribute, her mental resistance was low, which was why Dokja Kim had given her the mat. With no choice, he had to knock her unconscious. Fortunately, Sangha Yu's beads had a dispelling effect. The group gathered around her and gradually regained consciousness. Just as they were about to reach their destination, a figure suddenly blocked their path, drawing a sword and questioning their identity. After seeing her face clearly, Dokja Kim could barely contain his excitement. This girl was named Li Jihui, another major supporting character in the novel. Not only were her attributes incredibly strong, but she also had the sponsorship of the constellation Sea War God. In the major Sea War chapter, she was an indispensable presence at Yoo Joonghyuk's side. Learning that Dokja Kim's group had broken through the illusion, she volunteered to guide them. They soon arrived at the first outpost mentioned in the mission. Some drunkards noticed Li Jihui bringing newcomers, including 2 girls. They joked, "Want to rent a room?" Before Sangha Yu could understand what this meant, Li Jihui had her knife at the man's face, warning him to leave if he valued his life. Dokja Kim asked if Yoo Joonghyuk was also here. A murderous glint flashed in Li Jihui's eyes. She cautiously asked who he really was. Dokja Kim said he was Yoo Joonghyuk's companion. Li Jihui coldly replied, "Master isn't here," and turned to leave. This disappointed Dokja Kim. It seemed these two had already established a relationship, making it difficult to intervene. Just then, a boy approached and asked, "Are you really friends of Yoo Joonghyuk?" It turned out that 3 days ago, Yoo Joonghyuk had rescued them from monsters. They had since become his followers. Li Jihui was responsible for hunting food at this outpost, but if they wanted water, they had to exchange points or food with the Homeowner Alliance. Dokja Kim's interest was piqued. The Homeowner Alliance was the deadliest organization in the early novel, led by Kong Bidu, one of the 10 evils. His special attribute was homeowner and landowner, allowing him to thrive here. Any area he occupied was not protected by the system. At that moment, survivors crowded around the bathroom door, begging Kong Bidu to let them in. Li Jiang also tried to squeeze in for a look, but was accidentally knocked down by someone nearby. After his hands touched a green area, the system suddenly warned that Li Jiang had invaded private land. Next, 4 Gatling guns rose from the ground, aiming at him. Apparently, this space was divided into 2 types of areas. Green areas were called rooms, with capacity ranging from 1 to 70 people. Other areas were haunted by monsters. To survive, you had to stay in rooms. The system prompted again, "Please pay rent to the homeowner or all guns will fire immediately." However, Dokja Kim remained calm. He protected Li Jiang behind him, then stepped into the room, loudly calling out Kong Bidu's name. A balding middle-aged man looked up indifferently. The moment their eyes met, Dokja Kim activated character profile activated. Kong Bidu, 48 years old, support constellation, defense master. Skill, private domain and armed territory. Advice, avoid conflict if possible. Dokja Kim certainly didn't plan to confront him head-on. Kong Bidu was one of the 10 evils in the novel. Killing him prematurely would completely disrupt the plot, so he amiably indicated he wanted to rent a room, with rent payable daily. However, Kong Bidu didn't believe he had that much money. He activated his skill, profit calculation. He stated that people who looked like Dokja Kim usually skipped rent. He'd encountered one before. Dokja Kim wondered if it was Yoo Joonghyuk. He was about to turn and leave when he was called back. Li Jiang had touched the floor for 2 seconds and needed to pay a 1,000 fine. Dokja Kim tried to negotiate, but Kong Bidu immediately turned hostile. Several Gatling guns simultaneously opened fire. Fortunately, Hyunseo Lee flashed over with his shield, blocking most of the bullets, but he couldn't hold out for long. With the combat specialist Zheng Xiwan still unconscious, continuing the fight would definitely be disadvantageous. Dokja Kim could only warn Kong Bidu, "If you keep this up, you'll die here too." Kong Bidu didn't understand what this meant. Dokja Kim didn't explain, because that man had already arrived. Liu Joonghyuk was surprised Dokja Kim was still alive. Dokja Kim greeted him with a smile, as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other in a long time. But the next second, Liu Joonghyuk drew his sword to strike. Not at Dokja Kim, but at the bewildered Kong Bidu. Intimidated by the strongest man, Kong Bidu had no idea. However, seeing Dokja Kim still alive didn't seem to please Liu Joonghyuk. Unlike ordinary survivors, Dokja Kim didn't show reverence toward him. He claimed to be a prophet, yet had too many mysteries. Meanwhile, Dokja Kim was amazed by Liu Joonghyuk's growth. In just a few days apart, his levels had skyrocketed. Was this the protagonist's halo? At this point, Zheng Xiwan woke up. Seeing new companions beside Dokja Kim, Liu Joonghyuk became even more irritated. He directly activated Sage's Eye to check this squad's attributes. After seeing Hyunseo Lee's attributes, he was disappointed. He couldn't believe such a powerful tank showed so little potential under Dokja Kim's leadership. But when he saw Zheng Xiwan, his pupils constricted violently. Clearly, he had also seen her profession. He hadn't expected Dokja Kim to find such a treasure, which even sparked a hint of jealousy. However, Dokja Kim was focused on another issue: why allow Kong Bidu to run rampant? Though he would help with upcoming tasks, asks, was it necessary to let him grow so powerful? But Yoo Joonghyuk impatiently replied, the lives of people here are none of my concern. Dokja Kim was so angry he wanted to punch him. Yoo Joonghyuk calmly said, you can't hurt me, but secretly activating his defensive aura. But Dokja Kim was just talking. After all, this guy was the true protagonist. At this point, Jung Shiwan approached. Though she didn't know Yoo Joonghyuk's background, she was confident she alone could deal with scum like Kong Bidu. She directly activated Judgment Time, preparing to first expel Kong Bidu from the room. But the next second, the scales behind her suddenly dissipated. The system prompted, the absolutely good faction of Constellations expresses doubt about this judgment. Dokja Kim explained, Constellations judge good and evil differently than we do. Kong Bidu is just reasonably using his skills, so Constellations won't judge him as evil. But defeating him is simple, just make him move outside his armed territory. Just then, Bai Jing suddenly appeared, announcing the third main mission was officially launched. Survivors needed to occupy green areas within the time limit. Those outside green areas at night would face endless attacks. The mission would last 7 days. As soon as the mission began, the entire outpost plunged into chaos. After 2 mission trials, everyone understood the advantage of striking first. Dokja Kim reassured everyone not to worry. They could split up to find empty rooms. If they couldn't find any within 20 minutes, they should return to the original spot. But in reality, he knew all this was futile. Because the novel's original text clearly stated, there will be no spare rooms in this segment, so they could only compete with others for rooms. Just as he was staring blankly at the novel, Bai Jing suddenly appeared and said, why aren't you finding a room yet? What are you staring at that blank memo for? Only then did Dokja Kim realize that apparently no one else could see this novel. This made him even more curious about what kind of being the novel's author was. Suddenly, Lee Jihui appeared behind him, wondering why he wasn't rushing to grab a room. Dokja Kim just smiled faintly and said, who says you have to be in a room to survive? Lee Jihui asked in surprise, are you as powerful as my master? Before she could ask more, Yoo Joonghyuk behind her urged her to hurry back to the room. Although she wasn't sure how Dokja Kim planned to survive, she wasn't worried he would actually die. A while later, they all rushed back, and sure enough, they couldn't find a single room. Dokja Kim told them there were now 2 options. The first was to find a room that could accommodate 5 people and kill the occupants. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Though they knew Dokja Kim was decisive in killing, that was against enemies. They couldn't bring themselves to harm people who weren't truly evil. So they all expressed they wanted to choose the second option. Dokja Kim smiled with relief and said, then you must follow my instructions carefully or we'll all die here. By now, less than 5 minutes remained until the mission started. Monsters would randomly spawn in the subway tunnel and then sweep through the entire station. So they needed to rush into the tunnel the moment the monsters appeared. There must be hidden rooms inside. Just as Dokja Kim predicted, the tunnel was also part of the mission area. When Sang-Yu touched the wall, a room that could accommodate 3 people appeared. Sang-Yu and Zheng Xuan took shelter first, but Hyunseo Lee behind them was surrounded by monster groups. Fortunately, Sang-Yu activated her yarn skill and pulled him in just in time. Seeing the 3 were safe, Dokja Kim carried Lee Jiang and raced toward another direction. According to his memory of the novel, there was another hidden room nearby, but carrying someone on his back slowed him down, and soon the monsters caught up. At this moment, he couldn't help but admire Yoo Joonghyuk. In the 3rd round, he had survived until dawn outside a room with Hyunseo Lee. Dokja Kim wondered if he could do the same if he spent all his points on enhancing stamina. However, he quickly dismissed the idea. A reader should fight with a reader's identity. He then activated his exclusive skill bookmark, using bookmark number 1, Namwoon Kim. Instantly, his movement speed soared, weaving through the monster groups. Finally, he saw the green light not far away. He leaped with all his might, but the moment he saw the room, he froze. Yoo Joonghyuk was already inside. He couldn't help but curse, you could have survived without being in here. To his surprise, Yoo Joonghyuk said he was too tired and didn't want to move. This infuriated Dokja Kim. In the novel, Yoo Joonghyuk only discovered this hidden room in the 4th round, but now he not only found it early, but also got there first. Where's your protagonist's will? Though he wanted to question him like this, he could only beg him to take in Lee Jiang. Then he engaged with the pursuing monsters. In the blink of an eye, he was submerged by the monster horde. Yoo Joonghyuk's face showed a hint of reluctance, just as he was considering whether to help. A bright light suddenly emerged from the monster group. Then the system prompted, Phantom Prison activated. It turned out that in the previous illusion, Dokja Kim was the first to break through the fantasy, earning the task reward, Soul Demon Stone, which allows one to briefly become a ghost undetectable by monsters, but using it would cause mental contamination. Fortunately, the 4th wall helped him offset most of the side effects, but when he came to his senses, he suddenly discovered a woman standing behind him. Her profile information made Dokja Kim pale with shock, because this was the prophet he was impersonating, Anakaft. As the rarest constellation in the entire book, Anakaft had many abilities. Her innate skill clairvoyance allowed her to freely enter past and future timelines. She originally wanted to find Yoo Joonghyuk to accelerate the progress of the loop, but discovered Dokja Kim had taken her place. Dokja Kim could only explain awkwardly, actually, I'm a prophet too. However, Anna directly activated her lie detection skill. Her skill level was even higher than Yoo Joonghyuk's, and she quickly identified it as a lie. Just as Dokja Kim thought he was going to be interrogated, the 4th wall effect recovered. Anna was directly expelled from his consciousness. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself back at the subway station. Sang-Yu told him the first day's mission had ended, and everyone had survived. Dokja Kim noticed someone was missing. Turning his head, he saw Lee Jiang was beside Yoo Joonghyuk. It turned out Yoo Joonghyuk wanted Lee Jiang to go with him, promising promising he could make him stronger. Lee Jeong stated that no matter what, he would stay with the group. Yoo Joonghyuk was very displeased. Ever since Dokja appeared, his protagonist's halo seemed to have weakened. But there was no time to dwell on this now. He had more important things to do. With the second day's mission about to begin, Dokja decided to boost his teammates' combat power. According to the novel's plot, Hyunseo Lee should have experienced attribute evolution in the previous battle. Unexpectedly, Jung Shi-won beat him to it, becoming an evil eliminator. Both shared a hatred for evil, so Hyunseo Lee just needed a catalyst for evolution. So Dokja went to the underground level. There he found Lee Ji-hui, hoping to team up with her to defeat Kong Bi-doo. Kong Bi-doo occupied the largest room here. In the remaining time, small rooms would gradually disintegrate and disappear, meaning many people would die. Although Lee Ji-hui appeared cold on the surface, Dokja knew she wasn't as ruthless as Liu Zhonghae. Soon, it was evening. According to the plan, Zheng Xiwan took Sang-yu and Li Jiang to the platform. Hyunseo Lee went upstairs to find the homeowner alliance. As soon as he reached the entrance, he saw a group of people bullying a girl. Dokja Kim, who had read the entire story, knew this was the catalyst for Hyunseo Lee's evolution, so he spent 4,000 points to enhance his physical abilities. With Hyunseo Lee's cover, he stepped forward with a sword stance, disarming the lead man's arm. This territorial dispute battle had begun. Kong Bi-doo sent people to intercept. Hyunseo Lee activated his skill and forcefully pushed them back. Dokja Kim seized the opportunity to charge into Kong Bi-doo's domain, but the next second, a familiar Gatling gun appeared. Just as it was about to fire, Hyunseo Lee threw his shield over. Dokja Kim caught the shield, withstanding the firepower, approaching step by step. Kong Bi-doo was about to summon more weapons. At this moment, one of his subordinates ran over saying, "Boss, it's bad. All our territory has fallen." Dokja Kim looked at Hyunseo Lee and said, "Now's the time. Do it." Hyunseo Lee raised his right hand, then clenched it tightly. The next second, a golden light rose from his body. This scene deeply moved Dokja Kim. It was one of his favorite scenes in the novel. Being able to witness it in person now, the feeling was simply indescribable. Hyunseo Lee unfolded a pair of golden wings behind him. Then the system prompted, Hyunseo Lee has unlocked a new star mark skill due to attribute evolution. Hyunseo Lee immediately activated his skill. His right hand rapidly expanded as he slammed a punch to the ground. In an instant, the entire second floor began to collapse. This way, Kong Bi-doo's private domain was completely nullified. By now, Zheng Xiwan and the others had also arrived. According to the plan, they had destroyed all the small rooms. As for the medium-sized rooms, Li Jihui was responsible for conquering them. These actions immediately drew the constellation's dissatisfaction. They came to watch humans complete missions, not to watch them cause destruction. So they issued a bounty mission for Dokja Kim. Whoever eliminated him within 10 minutes would be rewarded with 2,000 gold coins. Seeing the situation, Li Jihui immediately fled, saying, "Good luck to you." However, Dokja Kim wasn't worried at all, because soon no one would have time to think about killing him. Sure enough, the system prompted again. Due to all green areas in the station being destroyed, the main mission system is out of control. Monsters that normally refresh periodically will now be released all at once. Please survive the remaining time. Some people were devoured by monster groups before they could react. Some tried to flee upstairs, only to find the stairs blocked by Dokja Kim. To eliminate any thought of escape, he directly destroyed the entire corridor with one sword strike. Then he activated the third bookmark representing Qian Renhao, using his incitement skill. He told everyone there was only one way to survive now. That was to unite and resist the monsters together. The biggest trap in this level was the green areas. As long as everyone gave up going in, the system would only generate a manageable number of monsters. Then he said to Kong Bi-doo, "If you don't want to die, then get moving. Your defensive master title isn't just for show, is it?" Under the enhancement of the incitement skill, Kong Bi-doo didn't hesitate any longer and immediately deployed defensive measures. With the Gatling gun's suppressive fire, the monster groups couldn't break through. Kong Bi-doo's support constellation provided sponsorship, giving him the skill to build defensive walls. But the cost was rapid energy consumption. Dokja Kim didn't join the battle, but instead checked the time. Liu Zhonghyuk had left for the underground area 11 hours ago, but hadn't returned. He had to take action, so he asked Bai Jing to open the ghost shop, then spent 10,000 points to purchase a contract, using the remaining 5,000 to buy magic recovery potions. Next was to wait for the right moment. Soon the constellation behind Kong Bi-doo started to falter. Continuous use of incarnation power required point sponsorship, and he had run out of money. He wasn't a very well-known constellation to begin with. If his incarnation Kong Bi-doo died, then his role would also end. Just as he felt trapped in a dilemma, Dokja Kim made his move. He took out the contract, saying he could help Kong Bi-doo restore his magic. The condition was for Kong Bi-doo's constellation to sign a contract with him, gaining the right to command Kong Bi-doo 10 times a day. Bijing's eyes bulged. It was the first time he'd seen a human contract with a constellation. Even more surprising was that the constellation agreed, with the conditions of ensuring Kong Bi-doo's safety and assisting in his future growth. At this time, Kong Bi-doo was still desperately resisting the monsters, having no idea he had been sold out. Just as he was about to give in, a vial of magic flew to him. Kong Bi-doo thought Dokja Kim had given it out of kindness. While drinking it, he threatened, "Once the mission is over, I'll kill you." As soon as he spoke, he found his mouth sealed. Dokja Kim commanded with a friendly smile, "Is that how you speak to your master?" Then he had Hyunseo Lee and Sang-yu keep an eye on him, while he set off for the surface. According to the novel's plot, there was a hidden underground city in this subway station. Liu Zhong had explored it 8 times, failing twice and succeeding 6 times. The 2 failures were in the 8th and 11th rounds, but now Liu Zhong had only looped 3 times, so so he was likely to die this time. If he died, the entire world would be reset. Dokja Kim wasn't sure if he would be affected, so to be safe, he had to intervene and save Yoo Joonghyuk. Soon they arrived at the entrance to the underground city, which was a movie theater connected to the subway station. Lee Jiwei was still just a high school student, so naturally she started chatting with Jung Shiwan about movies. Then they talked about their weapons, both agreeing that slashing monsters was very satisfying. Lee Jihui said her sword was a gift from her master, and never got dull no matter how much she used it. Jung Shiwan awkwardly touched the bone blade at her waist, saying hers wasn't bad either. Dokja Kim felt a bit guilty listening to this, thinking, I'll definitely get you better equipment after this battle. But just then, he suddenly heard voices from upstairs. This puzzled him. According to the novel's plot, only he and Yoo Joonghyuk knew about this place at this time. While he was confused, a blue light suddenly shone on them. The next second, they were teleported to a primitive forest. This underground city was made up of a movie theater with 8 floors. Challengers would be teleported into movie worlds, and only those who survived would succeed. The first floor was Jurassic Park. Upon arrival, they saw several people fleeing from the forest. Behind them was a giant T-Rex. They didn't get far before being swatted away by its tail. The next target was Dokja Kim. Lee Jiong activated his skill, controlling 2 mantises to blind the T-Rex's eyes. Jung Shiwan and Lee Jihui both drew their swords, slashing at the dinosaur's legs from left and right. Dokja Kim leaped into the air, switching his sword to fire attribute, and plunged it into the T-Rex's neck. In an instant, the T-Rex was engulfed in flames. Soon it burned and collapsed to the ground. Dokja Kim then approached the survivors and asked how they knew about this place. The man only said Prophet's revelation before dying completely. Dokja Kim was alarmed. In the novel, only the Prophet had a future perspective, but the man clearly wasn't referring to Anna Kaft. Could there be other readers besides himself? Before he could think further, the group discovered a research facility in the jungle with plenty of supplies. To be fair, they decided to play rock, paper, scissors to distribute them. However, with the omniscient reader's viewpoint, Dokja Kim could easily predict what others were thinking. He took most of the supplies. Then they escaped this world by helicopter. Here, each movie poster on the wall would be torn when entered. The first 3 floors' posters were already damaged, indicating Yoo Joonghyuk was ahead. After passing through the Titanic, they arrived at a reward room. This was the Avengers world, where each person could take 2 items. Jung Shiyuan acquired a samurai sword. Lee Jihui set her eyes on Thor's hammer, but beside the hammer was a note saying only those with a pure heart could lift it. Lee Jihui tried for a long time, but couldn't lift it. Then Lee Jiong stepped forward and easily picked up the hammer. This left Lee Jihui silent, because in the initial mission she had killed her friend to survive, which might be why she couldn't lift it. Dokja Kim didn't get any good items either, just Captain America's shield, and it looked like a knockoff. Then everyone advanced to higher floors. However, several consecutive floors' posters had been torn in advance. Even at the 7th floor, they still hadn't encountered Liu Zhangge. This meant he was now in the ultimate monsters room, and Dokja Kim prayed nothing would happen to him. But then, a blue light appeared, teleporting them into the 7th movie. As soon as they landed, countless bullets fired at them. Once they got their bearings, they saw this was a movie based on a historical naval battle. A naval commander from H country had once led 12 warships to defeat a M country fleet of 300 ships. But Dokja Kim discovered the movie plot had been altered. Not only were the 12 ships reduced to 1, but the naval commander was nowhere to be seen. He quickly called out for Li Jihui, because the novel mentioned that Li Jihui was a descendant of the naval commander, and her support constellation was the sea battle god, whose true identity was this historical naval commander, Chung Mugong. So Li Jihui was the key to winning this naval battle. But when he found her, she was trembling on the deck, because this was her friend's favorite movie. Under this influence, her mind was filled with images of killing her friend. Just then, the system displayed a mission. Please encourage Chung Mugong's incarnation to win the naval battle. Reward: one of Chung Mugong's constellation skills. This surprised Dokja Kim. He didn't know one could use a constellation skill without a contract. But before he could think more, M country's fleet had surrounded them. He could only fend off the cannon fire while encouraging Li Jihui. You were able to kill your friend to survive. Even if you die here, you won't get her forgiveness. But if you pull yourself together now, at least you can save another group of people. These words awakened Li Jihui. She wiped her tears and stood up, drawing her sword again. At this moment, the system prompted, Li Jihui has acquired a new constellation skill. A blood-red gas erupted from her body. The next second, a huge whirlpool appeared in the sea. Then 12 water columns shot up. When the water columns dispersed, 12 warships had appeared on the sea. This made Dokja Kim silently curse. What a lucky break for that Lu Zhongge. Now, the ghostly image of Chung Mugong appeared behind Li Jihui. With a swing of the sword and a command, the 12 warships quickly opened fire on the enemy ships. Under the cover of cannon fire, Li Jihui boarded the enemy ship and began close combat. Half an hour later, the naval battle ended with the H country fleet's retreat. Dokja Kim also received the mission reward, Constellation Skill, Song of the Blade. This nearly dropped his jaw. In the novel, Li Jihui only mastered this skill in the latter half. Now, it was given to him so easily. This gave him an ominous feeling. Before a great battle, there must be supplies. The situation on the 8th floor might be worse than he imagined. So after being teleported back to the theater, he left the exhausted Li Jihui to rest. While he rushed to the 8th floor with Zheng Shiwan and Li Jiang, he didn't dare be careless, continuously spending points to enhance his abilities. Because the 8th floor's dungeon was called Sky Garden, and its ultimate monster was also the master of the underground city, Virtual Wang. Though lacking Lacking close combat abilities, he excelled at mental control. Dokja Kim entered and immediately saw Yoo Joonghyuk. Just as he predicted, Yoo Joonghyuk had become Virtual Wang's puppet. This guy appeared cold and powerful on the surface, but due to multiple loops, his heart was already riddled with wounds, making him naturally susceptible to Virtual Wang. Before Dokja Kim could think of a strategy, Yoo Joonghyuk suddenly struck. One punch sent him flying dozens of meters. Seeing Dokja Kim being hit, Jung Xiuan's eyes turned red. She used her ghost kill teleportation skill to appear behind Yoo Joonghyuk. Jung Xiuan brought down her blade, but was easily dodged. Just as she was surprised by his speed, a fist suddenly came at her. One punch sent her flying. Li Jihui, who had just arrived, saw this and couldn't understand why her master had changed like this. Dokja Kim reminded her to attack Virtual Wang, but Yoo Joonghyuk leaped up and kicked Li Jihui in the face. As Jung Xiuan recovered, she immediately activated Judgment Time. However, as expected, this move had no effect on Yoo Joonghyuk. Li Jiang tried to summon lightning with Thor's hammer, but Yoo Joonghyuk had electric resistance, directly negating the attack. Dokja Kim took the chance to check his mission information and was shocked. This guy had already activated the Constellation skill, Legacy. This skill could, with the passage of time, awaken all his skills from previous rounds. Dragging this out would only put them at a disadvantage, so Dokja Kim took out the supplies obtained in Jurassic Park. T-Rex Essence, which could enhance all attributes for half an hour. As he drank the potion, power instantly filled his body. Since he couldn't match skill quantity, he'd make up for it with attribute values. Opposite him, Yoo Joonghyuk sensed the killing intent and showed an unprecedented serious expression. With just one breath, their swords collided. Then they quickly pulled apart. Then, Yoo Joonghyuk swung his sword again. At this time, the system prompted that Yoo Joonghyuk's aura skill had leveled up. Dokja Kim couldn't help but curse the protagonist's halo. He could only defend while activating the second stage of the Omniscient reader's viewpoint. Originally intending to find Yoo Joonghyuk's weakness, he instead heard his thoughts. Better to start over. It turned out that Yoo Joonghyuk was under the ultimate monster's mental control and couldn't break free on his own. So he wanted to activate his Constellation skill to return, resetting the entire world to when the disaster began. This terrified Dokja Kim because he wasn't a character in the novel. After a world reset, he would probably be erased. He could only fight desperately while trying to awaken Yoo Joonghyuk's will to fight. Yoo Joonghyuk, can you hear me? You're not fighting alone. When you held your sister crying in your previous lives, when you were betrayed and killed by the prophet, when you went mad after your child died, when you confronted the Demon King, it was I, this reader, who silently accompanied you. So don't give up. I will definitely save you. As he spoke, his sword changed to fire attribute, and he activated Song of the Blade. This was one of Chung Mugong's strongest battle enhancement skills. It would randomly inscribe a verse onto the weapon. Arrows rained down like a tilted downpour. The next second, thousands of lightning swords fell from the sky, but they didn't hit Yoo Joonghyuk, only trapping him in the center, because Dokja Kim's real target was Virtual Wang. Once he was killed, Yoo Joonghyuk would be free from control. But just as Dokja Kim was about to succeed, Yoo Joonghyuk suddenly activated the revival skill, sacrificing one life to break through the sword formation, blocking Virtual Wang. But Dokja Kim had a backup plan. A green shadow crashed into the underground city's barrier. The barrier instantly shattered. It was the level 6 Insect King, Giant Wing. Li Jiang had summoned it at the risk of backlash. Giant Wing immediately targeted the strongest, Yoo Joonghyuk. During their fight, Dokja Kim circled behind and swung his sword at Virtual Wang's head. Virtual Wang's face showed a smile as he activated his skill, Mental Erosion, successfully invading Dokja Kim's brain. Thinking he'd gained another powerful puppet, he instead saw the novel inside. In that moment of distraction, the fourth wall took effect. Dokja Kim broke free from the mental invasion and split Virtual Wang's head with his sword. Virtual Wang dissolved into golden particles. The system prompted, first time eliminating the theater master Virtual Wang, awarded 9,000 points. Just then, several shooting stars crossed the sky, and everyone looked up to make wishes. Only Dokja Kim knew this was a sign of the coming disaster. Since Yoo Joonghyuk had fallen unconscious due to mental damage, Dokja Kim left Li Jihui to care for him, then led the rest back to Zhongyi Road subway station. Halfway there, Zheng Xuan suddenly stopped and asked, "Mr. Dokja Kim, who exactly are you?" Only then did Dokja Kim realize that what he had shouted to Yoo Joonghyuk during the battle had been heard by others. Dokja Kim said, "I can only tell you that I know part of the future, and that we are comrades." Hearing this, Zheng Xuan didn't ask further. After all, everyone had their secrets. As long as they trusted each other, it was fine. So Dokja Kim quickly contacted Beijing. The battle had been live-streamed, and if the constellations knew about this novel, who knows what terrible things might happen. But Beijing knew nothing. Apparently, much of what was shown in the livestream had been automatically censored. This reminded Dokja Kim of a term from the novel, contingency, meaning an abnormal event. In the novel, whenever a contingency occurred, it would be automatically corrected. Dokja Kim couldn't help but feel relieved. When he returned to Zhongyi Road subway station, the battle there had also ended, with Kong Bidu facing off against Hyunseo Lee. Seeing Dokja Kim return, Kong Bidu said, "I'll tear you to pieces." But before he could finish, a prompt appeared before everyone. The fourth main mission will begin in 5 minutes. Then Beijing appeared, explaining that since the fourth task was station-based, each station needed to select a representative before it began. A mission appeared before everyone. Capture the white flag in the center of the platform. The winner becomes the station representative and can command all station members. The moment the flag appeared, Kong Bidu was the first to rush out. If he could grab the flag and become the representative, he could break free from Dokja Kim's control. However, just as he was about to touch the flag. Dokja Kim's voice rang out. Kong Bidu, lie down. Kong Bidu's body involuntarily fell to the ground. Dokja Kim then stepped on his body and leisurely pulled out the flag. But the task wasn't complete. One person needed to hold the flag for 5 minutes to succeed. Kong Bidu immediately ordered his men to seize it while activating his level 6 arm zone. Dokja Kim reluctantly used his command authority again, disabling the arm zone. Dokja Kim said, "Now do you understand the situation? I give you 2 choices. Either leave Zhongyi Road and go to another station, or stay here with me. For those who stay, I'll guarantee your external safety. I won't stop those who want to leave." Of course, Kong Bidu can't leave because he's mine. Zhongyi Road had 29 people total, 20 of whom were Kong Bidu's subordinates. Since he couldn't leave, most could only choose to stay. In the end, only 5 people left. As the 5-minute countdown ended, Beijing appeared again, activating the 4th main mission, Flag Battle. From now on, each station counted as a team, and all stations had a flag base. A representative would capture a station by planting their flag in another station's base. Dokja Kim's mission was to capture Changxin Station, with a time limit of 12 days and a reward of 2,000 points. However, just as they finished reading the mission, motorcycle engines roared from the tunnel. Dokja Kim immediately ordered everyone to prepare for battle, but the arrivals lowered their weapons and said, "Don't be alarmed, we mean no harm. I am Kang Il-hun, Vice Representative of Eastgate Station, here to request an alliance." Dokja Kim activated the Omniscient reader's viewpoint to check his profile. Though he had a support constellation, he wasn't very strong, so Dokja Kim tentatively believed him. However, when Dokja Kim gave his name, he noticed a momentary change in Kang Il-hun's expression. Dokja Kim said, "I can agree to an alliance, but I need to meet your representative first." Kang Il-hun agreed very readily. Then he rode his motorcycle, taking Dokja Kim and the others toward Eastgate. But midway through the ride, Dokja Kim and his group suddenly jumped off the bike. They had spotted an ambush from 100 meters away, but the ambushers were weak. The battle ended in minutes. Dokja Kim kept only Kang Il-hun alive. Just as he was about to question him, sounds of battle came from the direction of Zhongyi Road. Leaving Sangha-yu to guard the prisoner, Dokja Kim quickly led the others back. By now, the station had fallen into chaos. A person with a red flag tied to his head was commanding his subordinates to attack Zhongyi Road. Fortunately, Kong Bidu's armed zone held, or the flag base would have been lost. Seeing they couldn't break through, the representative ordered a retreat. Dokja Kim couldn't possibly let such prey escape. His sword activated a special option, changing from ether attribute to fire. With one slash, flames instantly filled the entire tunnel. Their representative died on the spot. Zhongyi Road's flag turned red. The core of the flag war was flag color. White was the lowest level, followed by red, blue, brown, purple, with black being the highest. Capturing stations or killing representatives could change flag color, with different colors providing different bonuses. Red, for example, increased defense and attack by 5%. After cleaning up the battlefield, Dokja Kim immediately headed to Myeongdong Station to take over the survivors there. However, when he arrived, he only saw corpses everywhere. The killers were 3 masked individuals. Seeing Dokja Kim, they fled on motorcycles without even planting their flag. Dokja Kim easily occupied Myeongdong Station, triggering a hidden mission, the King's Path. In the next 10 days, he must capture at least 1 station daily, or he and all his organization members would die. Reward, development of the King's attributes. After returning to Zhongyi Road, Dokja Kim felt something was wrong. As soon as he left, the base was attacked by Myeongdong Station, and Myeongdong Station was attacked by mysterious people. It all seemed too coincidental. When questioning Kang Il-hun, he said, "It was the people from Dongmyo Station who sent us. They call themselves the Prophets." But before he could finish, he passed out. Dokja Kim had seen in the novel that this was a skill called suggestion, preventing people from leaking information. He then checked the novel and confirmed that the prophets had never appeared. There were only 2 possibilities. Either there were other prophets besides Anakaft, or there were other readers besides himself. He had to confirm this. To ensure the base's safety before departure, he transferred some authority to Sangha-yu, telling her to punish Kong Bidu if he disobeyed. Between Zhongyi Road and Eastgate was another station, Historical Cultural Park, which was probably already occupied by Eastgate. Dokja Kim prepared for a fierce battle, but upon arrival, he found not a single person, only a flag with Dongmyo written on it. Just as Dokja Kim was about to continue forward, a group of people suddenly emerged from the tunnel. Dokja Kim instinctively activated the Omniscient reader's viewpoint, but the system prompted cannot view with novel character not included in novel. This had only happened with Sangha-yu before, because like him, she came from the real world. Most likely, these people were the prophets that Kang Il-hun mentioned. Meanwhile, the other side also used a viewing skill on Dokja Kim, but it was blocked by the 4th wall. The man's attitude immediately changed. "Excuse me, what is your name?" Dokja Kim grinned and said, "My name is Yoo Joonghyuk." Although Dokja Kim was the only one who had read the complete novel, 12 people had read the first 50 chapters, meaning he wasn't the only one with a script. The person before him was one of them. To avoid being discovered, Dokja Kim simply claimed to be the protagonist, Yoo Joonghyuk. The man still had some doubts, but after scanning Hyunseo Lee, his attitude did a complete 180-degree turn, because the novel mentioned a steel sword emperor named Hyunseo Lee by the protagonist's side. He said, "My name is Lee Chengguo. I'm the deputy representative of Dongmyo Station, which is just below Changxin Station." Seeing his fear of Yoo Joonghyuk, Dokja Kim directly threatened, "I'll count to 3. Hand over Dongmyo Station, or your head will roll." Lee Chengguo was terrified. Although he had only read a small part of the novel, he knew Yoo Joonghyuk's methods, so he quickly agreed and promised to offer all the territory they occupied. But transferring the flag requires meeting the Dongmyo Station representative face-to-face. Dokja Kim gladly agreed, curious about two things. First, whether Lee Chang-guo had the original novel. Second, how many prophet holders like him existed. Just then, he noticed Lee Chang-guo had been checking his phone from time to time. He decisively spent 5,000 points to enhance his agility, then flashed behind Lee Chang-guo. Although Lee Chang-guo quickly turned off his phone, Dokja Kim still saw that it was displaying a group chat interface. While Dokja Kim wondered where he got network access, Lee Chang-guo had already brought him to the representative. To his surprise, the representative was a child who preferred staying at home. After activating character profile, Dokja Kim learned the child's name was Han Dong-jun, who possessed skills related to network waves. The local network on Lee Chang-guo's phone was created by him. However, the information panel indicated that Han Dong-shun seemed hypnotized and mentally unstable. Lee Chang-guo knew Lu Zhonghe had the sage's eye, so he didn't hide anything. He openly admitted that he controlled Han Dong-shun because he had met other readers. Since they had all read only part of the novel, they called themselves prophets and decided to seek Lu Zhonghe as their backer. Lee Chang-guo spoke more excitedly, about to recite a passage from the original text to increase credibility, when his companion suddenly called him outside. Dokja Kim didn't follow but secretly enhanced his hearing with points to eavesdrop. It turned out his companion Zheng Mingxi was suspicious, because the novel described Lu Zhonghe as very handsome, but Dokja Kim had plain features, not matching the description. More crucially, in the early stages, Liu Zhonghe should only have one woman by his side, Admiral Li Jihui, and Zheng Shiyuan beside Dokja Kim didn't resemble her at all. As the two became increasingly suspicious, Dokja Kim dropped his act, flashing forward and swinging his sword at Zheng Mingxi, but only tore his clothes, revealing the flag hidden inside. It was just as he suspected. Han Dong-shun was merely a decoy. The true representative of Dongmyo Station was Zheng Mingxi, operating behind the scenes. When the flag was in hand, Dokja Kim's flag further changed to brown, gaining a 10% attack and defense boost. Zheng Mingxi and Lee Chang-guo finally realized the Liu Zhonghe before them was an imposter. However, Dongmyo Station had already changed hands, and they couldn't resist the new representative. Han Dong-shun was also freed from hypnosis. For the rest of the night, Dokja Kim used the same method to capture 6 neighboring stations, with only Changxin Station remaining for the King's Path mission. Lee Chang-guo and Zheng Mingxi, though defeated, held no grudges against Dokja Kim, as they just wanted protection. They didn't care who their backer was, so they truthfully shared more intelligence. Readers like them, who had only read the first few chapters, currently numbered 48. They usually communicated through Han Dong-shun's local network, and there were reportedly 12 people who had read the first 50 chapters, calling themselves the 12 Apostles, who wanted to change their fate in the new world with their prophet. Dokja Kim thought to himself, he is one of them also, but he didn't reveal this. Instead, he asked Zheng Mingxi for his fugitive mask. Wearing this mask allowed one to change appearance at will. With it, Dokja Kim could transform his face to look like Liu Zhonghe, because he saw in the chat group that other readers planned to hold a gathering tomorrow to exchange novel content they remembered. Dokja Kim intended to attend as Liu Zhonghe to learn these people's current thoughts. However, he didn't expect that as soon as he appeared, many readers surrounded him. They acted like fans meeting their idol, all wanting to connect with him. Dokja Kim cursed inwardly, if you had liked the protagonist this much while reading, you wouldn't have dropped the novel after just 50 chapters. Just then, a man said emotionally, meeting you is such an honor. Your second return and confrontation with the Demon King is unforgettable. Dokja Kim immediately became alert. If he remembered correctly, this scene happened after the 50th chapter. Could this person be one of the apostles? Dokja Kim wanted to probe for more information, when suddenly a man unveiled a cloth in the center, revealing a blood-red stone. Dokja Kim recognized it as a meteorite from the recent meteor shower. What were they doing bringing it here? Then the man explained that according to a prophet in their group, these stones contained powerful weapons. Knowing Liu Zhonghe was coming, they deliberately brought it as a gift. However, Dokja Kim turned pale with fear. He understood these fools had been tricked. He quickly tried to call everyone to escape, but barriers had already risen around them, blocking all exits. Then, the meteorite began to vibrate. This made Dokja Kim break out in cold sweat, because hidden in the meteorite wasn't a weapon at all, but the ultimate monster from the 5th main quest, the Calamity Flame Dragon. Yet they hadn't even completed the 4th quest. Clearly someone was trying to wipe them out. Fortunately, detecting an abnormal difficulty level, an ultimate goblin was teleported over. It snapped its fingers, making the Calamity Flame Dragon freeze. Everyone thought it came to fix a glitch, but then it issued a quest. Survive for 20 minutes under the attack of the infant dragon Igniler. Success rewards, 3,000 points, failure consequence, death. Then it snapped its fingers again, allowing the flame dragon to move. Dokja Kim knew they couldn't defeat it and could only tell everyone to run in circles. This monster had 2 attack methods. Regular attacks were easy to dodge, but every 3 minutes it would release a skill, Annihilation Spark. They needed to find hidden footpads in the arena with random numbers. If the number of people standing on a footpad matched its number, they would gain 10 seconds of invincibility. Just as he finished explaining the rules, people began killing each other for footpads. Dokja Kim's group also found a footpad, but its number was 4, one less than their group size. Seeing the flame dragon had finished charging, a man urgently shouted for Dokja Kim to hide on his footpad. His footpad's number was exactly 2. At the critical moment, the invincibility shield activated, blocking the first wave of flames. Dokja Kim looked at the man beside him, and realized it was the small-eyed man from earlier. Dokja Kim's eyes immediately turned cold. He drew his sword and demanded, "You're an apostle, right?" Unexpectedly, the man openly admitted and revealed revealed their purpose. Killing excess profits was just a side mission. What they really wanted was to invite Yoo Joonghyuk to hunt this infant dragon for rich rewards. Dokja Kim then noticed the man hadn't sweated a drop and was emanating a cold aura. He instantly recalled a potion in the novel called the cyan ice pill. After taking it, one could resist fire for 30 minutes. Dokja Kim carefully sensed around and found 5 people emitting this aura, indicating they were the man's accomplices. The man smiled. "If Sir Yoo Joonghyuk helps us, we can give you the medicine too. But if you refuse, your headquarters might fall. Our representative has already completed the King's Path mission, occupying 10 stations, now standing before the flag of Zhongyi Road. I might as well tell you, he's also the only one among us who has read all the revelations. He knows all your past and future." Dokja Kim was stunned by this news. Apart from himself, no one else could have read all the revelations. Realizing he was also being impersonated, he laughed instead of getting angry and walked out of the footpad, saying, "You seem to have forgotten my star mark skill. I'm not afraid of death because no matter how many times I die, I can just restart. But I'm curious about one thing. Will you all return after I die, or just be erased by the world?" Sensing something wrong, the man's expression changed instantly, quickly ordering people to grab him. But it was too late. Dokja Kim rushed directly under the flame dragon and planted the Zhongyi Road flag in the flag stand. Then came a system prompt. "You have occupied a total of 10 stations, completing the hidden mission, King's Path." 3 options appeared, allowing him to become any one of the kings. Dokja Kim chose the king of no killing without hesitation. The 2 people chasing him were just turned to charcoal by annihilation spark. Then the flame dragon turned toward Dokja Kim. However, Dokja Kim just stood still, letting the flames reduce him to ashes. The system prompted, "Player has died." But the next second, a pop-up appeared. King of no killing trait activated. Dokja Kim suddenly awoke, finding himself in another place, even his clothes intact. But he wasn't very surprised, thanks to the king of no killing trait. For every 100 lives saved, he gained a revival coin, with 1 bonus coin for first use. That's why he could come back to life. But it seemed he hadn't fully revived, because he saw that due to the activation of the Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint's 3rd stage conflicting with the king of no killing skill, he would enter an out-of-body state. Before Dokja Kim understood what was happening, he felt dizzy. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself at Zhongyi Road. He could see Sangha-yu and Kong Bidu, but they couldn't see him. Just then, Sangha-yu's alarm line broke, signaling enemy invasion. Kong Bidu immediately gathered everyone, but they discovered the invaders weren't human, but a swarm of mole crickets. Fortunately, Sangha-yu had some strength. She arranged the battle formation by fighting around Kong Bidu's turret. Dealing with these small monsters wouldn't be a problem. However, unexpectedly, when most creatures were defeated, 5 humans walked out from the tunnel. The leading man sighed and said, "Worthy of Yoo Joonghyuk's territory, mere mole crickets couldn't handle it." Sensing hostile intentions, Kong Bidu hurriedly called for Li Jui. These people weren't afraid of her. A bald man even taunted, "Give that woman to me. I've wanted to be with her for a long time." Kong Bidu immediately activated the turret, but the bullets were all neutralized by a shield wielded by one man. Dokja Kim, watching from the side, broke into a cold sweat. This was the magic bullet decomposition shield. Only someone who had read the novel could be so well prepared. These 5 must also be apostles. But they miscalculated one thing. Li Jui and Kong Bidu's strength had been enhanced with his help. Their capabilities differed from the original story. Then, the hooded man pulled something from his clothes and threw it into the battlefield. With a bang, it exploded, releasing massive blue flames. Instantly reversing the situation, Li Jui's group was severely injured, while the apostles were unaffected thanks to their protective gear. The bald man grabbed Li Jui by the hair, lifting her from the ground, saying, "This is how a supporting character should be. Just a character in a novel, you should properly serve the readers." Li Jui was powerless to resist, only looking toward the tunnel, using her last strength to say 2 words, "Save me." And standing there was Dokja Kim. He didn't understand why Li Jui could see him, or if it was just coincidence. But seeing her suffering, Dokja Kim felt rage rising. The system prompted, "Due to your strong empathy, the 4th wall begins to slightly vibrate. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint proficiency greatly increased." Dokja Kim suddenly felt his soul return to a body, but not his own body. It was Yoo Joonghyuk's, and his perspective changed to first person. Dokja Kim swung his sword, instantly decapitating the bald man. The remaining apostles were stunned. Yoo Joonghyuk stared at them with death-like eyes, saying, "You will all die here." The next second, Dokja Kim's consciousness was transported out, back to the flame dragon battlefield. The king of no killing trait finally activated, perfectly reconstructing his body. System prompt, Omniscient's 3rd stage deactivated. Initial use reward will be distributed later. Zhang Shiyuan was shocked to see him revive, thinking he had secretly learned Li Zhong's skill, but she immediately told Hyunseo Lee to provide support, because Dokja Kim only had a footpad displaying the number 2 nearby, requiring 2 people to trigger the invincibility shield. Just as they reached the footpad, Igniler launched another annihilation spark. When the flames dispersed, Zhang Shiyuan and the others hurried over, initially wanting to check his condition, but accidentally saw something they shouldn't. Dokja Kim felt extremely embarrassed. Fortunately, Zhang Shiyuan was wearing the straw mat he had given her earlier, now perfect for returning to its owner. But clothes weren't the biggest problem now. There were still 5 minutes until the mission ended. Igniler would release at least 1 more skill, but with 5 people, they had no matching numbered footpads. Fortunately, the 5 apostles had all died from the skill. Cyan ice pills could resist ordinary flames but not annihilation spark. So Dokja Kim told everyone to collect the cyan ice pills, while investing 4,000 points to raise his magic power to level 25. Their only hope was to kill the flame dragon before its next skill. skill, originally planning to use the cyan ice pills to enhance ice attribute damage, but the system prompted, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint third stage usage reward has arrived. For experiencing the protagonist's first-person perspective, you can obtain one protagonist skill. Dokja Kim immediately stopped, so he could master one of Yoo Joonghyuk's skills. However, after seeing the options, he was disappointed. It was a random choice of 3, and all were his weakest skills. Dokja Kim was speechless. Among the 3, he most wanted lie detection. But in this situation, he could only choose flame resistance. Yet he didn't make a hasty decision, instead recalling the novel content again. After carefully reviewing the chapter where the flame dragon appeared, he discovered a previously overlooked setting, and this setting made him change his mind. He finally chose the skill, cold resistance, then stopped the others from taking the cyan ice pills. He asked them to give all the pills to him, which he swallowed at once. As a piercing cold spread, the system prompted, added 200% cold attribute damage. Thankfully, he had level 5 cold resistance, or this severe cold would have killed him. He told everyone to hide behind him, then switched his sword to dark attribute, and activated constellation skill, Song of the Blade. The poem of Jung Yi-gong was engraved on the sword. For the next 5 minutes, this sword would possess ice, lightning, and dark attributes. Dokja Kim leaped up, thrusting his sword with all his might into the flame dragon's nape. Beneath the nape was its heart. According to his prediction, if he could mimic Yoo Joonghyuk's strike from the 5th reincarnation, he could pierce the heart and kill it. With one thrust, the flame dragon let out a painful wail. Dokja Kim thought he had succeeded, but the next second, a tail appeared before his eyes. With a sweep, it sent him flying. This blow nearly killed him. However, Dokja Kim seized the opportunity and threw his sword. This strike accurately hit the flame dragon's heart. With a burst of cold energy, the flame dragon Igniler completely lost its breath, finally turning into an ice sculpture. The constellations watching the livestream cheered in excitement, sending rewards. Just as everyone anticipated the mission rewards, the ram-horned monster who issued the task poured cold water on their expectations. Because of human interference in the mission, according to reasonable contingency judgment, each person's reward would be reduced. Besides the fixed reward points, Dokja Kim only received an amulet, indicating it would help in the 5th mission. He wasn't surprised, because so-called contingency was the author's will expressed in the novel. They were usually executed by the Administration Bureau to ensure the plot didn't deviate too far from the original. What truly surprised him was the ram-horned monster's subsequent announcement. It continued, after discussion by the Administration Bureau. It was determined that your average ability had already exceeded the mission difficulty, so the difficulty would be dynamically adjusted. The time limit for the 4th mission was modified if the target station wasn't occupied within 3 days. All members of the organization would die. Dokja Kim's target station was Changxin Station. He had to first return to Zhangyi Road to let everyone rest and recover. However, upon returning to base, he saw 4 heads placed on the subway tracks, belonging to the apostles who had invaded. Not far away, Yoo Joonghyuk held a sword and threw the last head over. Dokja Kim wanted to ask why he didn't keep someone for questioning. When the newly thrown head suddenly moved, everyone fearfully backed away. Only Dokja Kim calmly stepped forward, staring at the head and asking, "You're a writer, right?" This was a special profession in the novel. Due to enormous creative pressure, people often developed personality disorders, manifested in the novel's plot as having the clone ability. The death of clone wouldn't affect the original body, which is why he could still speak. The man grinned and said, "You should call me the author, because I wrote this novel." Dokja Kim was shocked, thinking he was talking nonsense, but Yoo Joonghyuk's lie detection skill showed he was telling the truth. The man then arrogantly claimed he had the novel's document, making Dokja Kim momentarily panic. But he quickly realized something was wrong. If he really was the writer, he wouldn't fail to recognize him, the only reader. He suddenly thought of a possibility. During serialization, due to lack of popularity, even pirated versions couldn't be found online. Then someone took the opportunity to plagiarize the first 100 chapters, stitching them into their own novel, even winning the platform's monthly ticket champion. So he immediately probed, someone who only knows how to plagiarize dares to call himself an author? The man's face turned pale at this, clearly having hit a sore spot. He immediately shouted at Yoo Joonghyuk, "I'm the one who knows all revelations. Only I can lead you to the end of reincarnation. If you want my help, kill this Dokja Kim." Yoo Joonghyuk coldly observed this scene, one claiming to be a prophet, one claiming to be a revelator. Finally, he stepped on the man's head, but his sword pointed at Dokja Kim, asking the head on the ground, "Since you know the future too, do you think I will kill him?" Without thinking, the man answered, "You definitely will." However, as soon as he finished, his head was crushed underfoot. Yoo Joonghyuk disappointedly sheathed his sword, saying, "You're far worse than him," then turned to leave, stating he would participate in the flag battle. Since Dokja Kim had already claimed this flag, he had to look elsewhere. Meanwhile, he left Lee Zhihui here, as it was more convenient to act alone. Dokja Kim felt somewhat embarrassed. In a sense, he had stolen many of Yoo Joonghyuk's scenes. But the most urgent matter now was to occupy Changxin Station. Changxin Station was in the north, held by a man nicknamed Tyrant King, who reportedly had occupied almost 20 stations. His flag was about to turn black, making it difficult to defeat him head-on. So Dokja Kim devised a plan to spread part of the novel's content. The plagiarist writer was still alive, his knowledge limited to the first 100 chapters. By releasing appropriate revelations and marking rare item locations, he could make him and Tyrant King compete. He assigned the writing task to Jung Mingshi, who had experience writing web novels. Just then, he noticed Jung Mingshi and Lee Chungguo now had character information, yet they had never appeared in the novel. Dokja Kim turned to look at Luo Xiangya and found he still couldn't view her information. While Dokja Kim pondered this, Jung Ming-shi had already finished the document, so he had Han Dong-shun posted online for sale. Meanwhile, he dispatched Kang Il-hun, who had the rumor-spreading skill, to spread intelligence in areas without network. Tyrant King's support constellation was powerful, so Dokja Kim devised two strategies: either directly steal his flag, or capture his headquarters at Daofeng Station. But first, they would go to Guanghua Station, because he falsely claimed in the document that there was a rare item there. Tyrant King would battle the writer there, and after they weakened each other, he could easily seize the flag. After explaining the battle plan, Dokja Kim immediately fell asleep on the spot, not because he was tired, but to activate the Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint's third stage. Based on current performance, the first stage could predict novel characters' emotions and simple actions. The second stage could read novel characters' inner thoughts. The third stage was the immersion he just experienced, possessing novel characters in first person. There were two conditions for activating the third stage. One was being in a semi-conscious state. Two, the person being possessed must be thinking about you at the same time you think of them. Dokja Kim possessed Kang Il-hun and witnessed Tyrant King's true appearance. He firmly believed the high-priced document and had decided to act. Then he switched to Jung Ming-shi's perspective, seeing that the plagiarist writer was also mobilizing, along with a group of newly promoted kings from the eastern city heading toward Guanghua Station. After ending the possession state, Dokja Kim woke up. Using the third stage was more exhausting than he imagined, and there was no mission reward this time. Perhaps only possessing the protagonist earned rewards? With no time to think further, he brought Liu Xiangya and prepared to depart. This time he left Hyunseo Li at Zhangyi Road to help Kong Bidu defend the station. Li Zhihui belonged to Liu Zhonghe, so it wasn't convenient to directly command her. As for the combat specialist Zheng Shi Yuan, he sent her on another mission. The reason for bringing Liu Xiangya was her expertise in history. They would pass through the National Museum, which contained many items from Constellation's past lives. With Liu Xiangya, they could identify these. Compared to Tyrant King and the Rider's forces, they had the fewest people, so they needed to obtain as many items as possible. Liu Xiangya didn't disappoint, leading them directly to a Guandi temple. This shrine worshipped the strongest martial god of country Z. Though a foreign constellation, it was universally known. Dokja Kim respectfully bowed in worship. The next second, the system prompted, Marin Palace bestows blessing, strength, and stamina increased by 5 levels for 24 hours. Just as he felt disappointed at not obtaining an item, Li Jiang received an insect alert. A group of people was approaching. The newcomers all wore ancient costumes. After spreading to both sides, they escorted an elegant, majestic woman. Li Shengguo immediately recognized international superstar Min Jiwan. He was her fan in reality. He was about to go for a handshake when Dokja Kim slapped him awake, because Min Jiwan was a character in the novel, not existing in reality. Her support constellation was the last queen of Silla. In the novel's current plot, 3 regions had the most intense conflicts. The representatives of the 3 regions were incarnations of these 3 countries' constellations, Min Jiwan being one of them. She recognized Dokja Kim's considerable strength and issued a bounty mission, offering 2,000 points to recruit him and jointly eliminate the kings of Baekji and Taebong. However, Dokja Kim was unimpressed. He had a livestream contract with Beijing, earning nearly 10,000 points a day in rewards. He didn't care about a mere 2,000 points. Seeing him about to leave, Min Jiwan hastily raised the offer to 3,000 points. But this only invited mockery from watching constellations, who directly rewarded 3,000 to display their power. Min Jiwan was speechless. After all, Silla was historically just a tiny country, no match for legendary constellations. Meanwhile, Liu Xiangya looked puzzled. She and Li Jiang didn't know Min Jiwan. She wondered why Li Chengguo called her a celebrity. Dokja Kim was also confused about this, so he used character profile activated on Li Chengguo, and found that the from reality marker in his attributes had disappeared, meaning he had become a novel character also. Dokja Kim was stunned. The only explanation was that, although Li Chengguo and others had read the novel, due to knowing too little of the plot, once the story progressed beyond their knowledge, they were classified as novel characters. Dokja Kim worried if the same would happen to him. The system suddenly sent a prompt, Min Jiwan has developed a slight fondness for you. This confused Dokja Kim. What had he done to make her suddenly like him? Then he remembered that in one reincarnation, Liu Zhonghe had grabbed this woman's collar. After that, Min Jiwan had developed a crush on him. For the rest of the journey, they were followed by Min Jiwan. Finally arriving at the National Museum, there was an A-grade weapon here, the 4-tiger demon slaying sword. Dokja Kim deliberately described it as SS grade in the false intelligence, to confuse attention and obtain the truly rare item here. But just then, a goblin suddenly appeared and announced an additional main quest. Occupy the golden throne in front of the museum. The successful person would have command authority over other kings, but only those with black flags could participate. Currently, there were no vacant stations, so changing flag color had only one method, seizing other kings' flags. As soon as the mission was announced, each king's forces began slaughtering each other. Dokja Kim took the opportunity to enter the museum. He told Liu Xiangya to find the plane's spherical star chart, a disc-like device. However, just as he finished speaking, a red light beam flew past their heads. Dokja Kim drew his sword to block, finding it was an arrow with magical power, and the archer appeared on the roof. Character information showed he was Zhao Wang Ren. The support constellation was the hero of Huang Sanbao. Dokja Kim knew this constellation, whose real name was the great general of Baekje Gyebaek. Although Zhao Wang Ren himself wasn't powerful, his star mark level was high, and Dokja Kim couldn't handle him alone. Dokja Kim was considering whether to use points to enhance his physical abilities when a woman's voice suddenly appeared. As a famous general, choosing a thug as your incarnation, don't you feel ashamed? The speaker was Min Ji-won, who had been following them. She came to Dokja Kim's side, apologizing for trying to buy him earlier, and ordered her subordinates to attack. Zhou Wangren's support constellation represented Baekji, while hers represented Silla. The two countries had fought a great battle at Hwangsan Ball, and though Silla eventually won, many Hwarang died under Gyebaek's arrows. Hwarang were Silla's noble soldiers, and most of Min Ji-won's subordinates were Hwarang incarnations. Due to historical influence, they were naturally countered by Zhou Wangren's forces. As the battlefield fell into disadvantage, Liu Shangya returned with a disc. She had found the plain spherical star chart. Dokja Kim wasted no time and immediately placed his hand on it. The plain spherical star chart was an ancient device for measuring stars, given a powerful function in the novel, seeking help from great human-level constellations. Constellations were divided into great human, legendary, and mythical levels. Though great human level had the lowest status, they still had overwhelming power over incarnations. And the constellation Dokja Kim wanted to summon was related to the Hwangsan Ball battle. He was calling upon the historical Silla general, Great Marshal King Kim Yu-sin. The system prompted, Constellation Great Marshal King has responded to the request. You will temporarily receive Great Marshal King's protection. When he opened his eyes again, he brought Kim Yu-sin into the physical world. Now Kim Yu-sin had dominant control over Dokja Kim's body. He looked at Zhou Wangren's support constellation. In the Hwangsan Ball battle, it was he who led the army to kill Gyebaek. Seeing this familiar scene, Gyebaek also became excited, possessing Zhou Wangren to fight Kim Yu-sin again. Kim Yu-sin infused his lifetime weapon's power into the sword, then thrust it forcefully into the ground. As black energy spread, skeleton soldiers crawled up from the ground, his star mark, Great Hwarang Assembly. The undead army surged forward, beating Gyebaek's forces back. Forcibly possessing an incarnation violated the contingency contract, allowing only less than half power, and Gyebaek soon fell under the Hwarang spears. At this point, Dokja Kim quickly reminded him, General Kim, don't kill him personally. Because of the king of no killing restriction, he can't personally kill fellow tribesmen. Though Kim Yu-sin didn't understand, he still called an executioner to behead Zhou Wangren for him. At this moment, there were only 3 minutes left in the shelter time. Kim Yu-sin controlled their soldiers to eliminate all the remaining people. With this, the flag fell into Dokja Kim's hands. Dokja Kim's flag absorbed a brown flag of the same level and evolved into a purple flag. However, Kim Yu-sin seemed unsatisfied, indicating that descending into reality meant he would bear some contingency. Dokja Kim didn't understand what that meant. He could only laugh it off and say, I will definitely remember the general's kindness. As a result, Kim Yu-sin changed the subject and said, I see you don't have a support constellation, right? I value you greatly. If you're willing, I can sign a constellation contract with you to travel this world together. With my star mark, you too can become the most powerful person of this era. Dokja Kim secretly despised this after hearing it. I even rejected Monkey King's contract, let alone yours, a mere great human-level constellation. But he still put on a smiling face, expressing that he was too inexperienced for such a task. Unexpectedly, Kim Yu-sin's expression changed immediately as he said, you mentioned you have a restriction against killing your own kind. So, if I were to kill this woman beside you, could you still refuse me? Dokja Kim panicked instantly, having never anticipated this situation. He had the king of no killing trait. Once he killed his own kind, he would be stripped of his title as king. He struggled with all his might to regain control of his body, but the intense will erupted shook the contingency. His special skill, Fourth Wall, activated, forcibly ejecting Kim Yu-sin. When he came to his senses, Kim Yu-sin had been forced back to the constellation. Sangha-yu was still nervously clutching the thread, afraid of losing control again. Dokja Kim sighed, realizing he needed to be more careful when summoning constellations next time. After saying goodbye to Min Ji-won, he found Zheng Mingzi, who was lurking in front of Gwanghwamun. Zheng Mingzi had been observing secretly through an invisibility cloak, confirming that a total of 9 kings, including the Tyrant King and the Rider, had entered the dungeon. Dokja Kim planned to let them fight each other first, while he would take Li Jiyoung and Sangha-yu to challenge the hidden dungeon in front of the museum. With 3 people, they could challenge a dungeon called the Acupuncture Bronze Man Field. As soon as they entered, countless bronze men lunged at them with teeth and claws. Sangha-yu swung her knife but found she couldn't cut through them. Dokja Kim then reminded her to attack the acupuncture points on the bronze men's bodies. Only by stabbing the deadly point under their armpits could they be killed. This level wasn't difficult. The key was that after killing 99 bronze men, each person could get 4 ancient coins. With these coins, they could enter the next level, where the 4 tiger demon slaying sword was stored. Dokja Kim guessed that others had already reached there and begun killing each other, just as he was about to go deal with the aftermath. However, as soon as he pushed open the door, he smelled a burnt stench. In the center of the hall was a pile of bonfires, but the fuel wasn't wood, it was dead humans. The system prompted, enter the Big Dipper field. As the name suggested, there were rooms in total. Kings had entered the challenge, and their servants were in the hall. Seeing Dokja Kim and his 2 companions appear, a man with a sword on his back walked over. But he wasn't looking for a fight, he wanted to recruit Dokja Kim to join forces. It turned out he was a servant of the Maitreya King. The Maitreya King had completed the challenge in his room and obtained a star crystal. Collecting all 7 would summon the 4 tiger demon slaying sword, but now 2 kings had been killed by the Tyrant King, and the star crystals were stolen. So he wanted to recruit Dokja Kim to fight against the Tyrant King together. Dokja Kim had no objection, but to be safe, he checked the man's information first. The system displayed that this character wasn't in the novel and couldn't couldn't be viewed. Dokja Kim seemed to suddenly understand something and was about to ask for his name when he heard a cheer. It turned out that 3 more people had completed the room challenge. After a quick look at their support constellations, he found they were all great human-level constellations similar to Kim Yu-sen. Their abilities weren't outstanding, but this was normal. The 4th task was essentially a proxy war for historical figures. Most were historical generals or kings, hoping to ascend to the throne through battles between incarnations and upgrade to legendary status. The man was now very excited. The scene before him was just like a martial arts novel, with 7 kings battling to determine the true king. Dokja Kim also smiled and agreed, "Indeed, but it's a pity this is just a plagiarized novel." As he spoke, he quickly drew his sword and cut off the man's head. Everyone present was thrown into chaos, thinking an internal conflict had erupted. Dokja Kim calmly picked up the head and said, "As expected, another clone. Where is your real body?" The writer, seeing he was exposed, laughed and said, "You'll find out soon enough." The next second, a circle of light suddenly rushed toward everyone. In the blink of an eye, it cut off several people's heads. Then the circle returned to a man's hand. It was the tyrant king who already possessed 3 crystals. Seeing his weapon, Dokja Kim was immediately alarmed. He never expected him to have obtained the hidden item, the 3-wheel ring. This item had great compatibility with his constellation and could be remotely controlled to attack at will. Just as he was thinking about how to deal with it, the ram horn monster suddenly appeared on the scene. It snapped its fingers and announced the second condition for challenging the throne. Only 5 people could compete for the final throne, meaning they had to kill each other until only 5 kings remained. At the same time, the system prompted that there were currently 12 kings alive in the dungeon. Dokja Kim was startled. This meant the writer had more than 1 clone. Just as he was about to warn everyone to be careful, 1 king screamed in agony, killed by his most loyal subordinate. Then several more kings fell in succession. Even the tyrant king was backstabbed by his trusted aides. He angrily cut off the heads of these 2, only to find they were all clones. At this moment, a figure was moving rapidly between the kings. When everyone came to their senses, they discovered all the star crystals had been stolen. The system sent a prompt. The fake King Han Shuiying has obtained all the star crystals and met the summoning conditions. Dokja Kim was completely stunned. He never expected the writer's true form to be a woman. It was too late to stop her. The next second, Han Shuiying directly sacrificed all the gems and successfully summoned the Super S-grade item, the 4-tiger demon slaying sword. Holding the divine weapon, she was extremely excited and began a killing spree. However, as she continued killing, she noticed something wrong. Why did it seem the sword could not kill people? At this point, Dokja Kim had a mischievous smile. The 4-tiger demon slaying sword was indeed powerful, but its true strength came from its owner. If his guess was correct, that person should arrive soon. Sure enough, the system sent a notification that the number of surviving kings was rapidly decreasing. The tyrant king was excited, thinking it was his doing. But the next moment, there was a cracking sound above his head. The next second, countless stones fell, crushing him to death on the spot. Han Shuiying turned around in disbelief, wondering if it was that man. Liu Zhong had descended from the sky, bringing a terrifying pressure to the battlefield. He glared at Dokja Kim with unprecedented killing intent. He said, "I'll give you 3 seconds to tell me where my sister is." But Dokja Kim turned to Li Jiang and said, "Now." As soon as the words fell, Li Jiang used his star mark to summon the level 6 insect king's giant wings to block Liu Zhonghe. Dokja Kim took the opportunity to ambush Han Shuiying and steal her purple flag. With this, his flag evolved into black, fulfilling the first condition for competing for the throne. Then he went to the tyrant king's corpse and took his 3-wheel ring and another item. By this time, Liu Zhong had broken through the giant wing's defense. Dokja Kim quickly hid behind another king, using him as a shield to dodge a sword strike. Liu Zhong wanted to continue, but the ram-horned monster suddenly appeared overhead. Because there were exactly 5 kings left, all conditions for throne competition were met, and all kings would be teleported to the throne for the final battle. Dokja Kim thought he was saved, but found himself blocked outside the barrier. Checking the task information, he discovered he didn't qualify to participate. He had forgotten the most crucial thing. He hadn't captured the target station, Changxin Station. This was a prerequisite for competing for the throne, so he was naturally excluded. Just as he was lamenting how he could forget this, he saw Sang Yu running over with Zheng Shiyuan. Zheng Shiyuan was carrying a little girl who was Liu Zhonghe's sister, Liu Mia. It turned out that before the battle, Dokja Kim had given her this task of bringing Liu Mia over. He had also given Li Jihui a note to pass to Liu Zhonghe, implying his sister had been kidnapped by northerners. This was to divert Liu Zhonghe's attention. This way, he would have one less competitor. Unexpectedly, this strategy was not only seen through by Liu Zhonghe, but he also misunderstood that Dokja Kim had kidnapped his sister. At this point, all he could do was occupy Changxin Station first. But Zheng Shiyuan stopped him, saying there was no need to go to such trouble. He then asked Liu Mia to use her ability to take out what she had given her earlier. The little girl reached into her mouth and pulled out a lump of concrete. Dokja Kim was dumbfounded because it was actually the flag stand of Changxin Station. Zheng Shiyuan had visited Changxin Station before returning, and upon learning Liu Mia had storage abilities, he dug up the flag stand and put it in her mouth. Dokja Kim, looking shocked, said, "Zheng Shiyuan, you are so powerful." With gratitude, Dokja Kim planted the flag, finally completing this prerequisite task. Then a golden light descended and transported him to the scene of the throne competition. As soon as he entered, he saw Liu Zhonghe beating up the others. Now the surviving kings besides the 2 of them were Min Jiwan and the Maitreya king, and the neutral Zhongwen who's still outside. The system showed he was in a state of waver, clearly frightened by Liu Zhonghe. Min Jiwan originally wanted to struggle a bit more, but seeing Dokja Kim teleport in, she also chose to resign to avoid conflict. confronting him. The only one still fighting, the Maitreya king, soon couldn't hold on and was kicked out of the arena, immediately unconscious. In this final competition, all skills and items were banned. The only thing they could do was use points to enhance their abilities, but the enhancement was limited to this battle. Yoo Joonghyuk, due to his previous reincarnations, always had about points in reserve, plus his already overpowered stats, making him seemingly invincible. However, Dokja wasn't worried at all, because he had points. With continuous system prompts, he directly maxed out his strength. Then he threw a punch. This single blow made Yoo Joonghyuk lose consciousness. Dokja couldn't help but admire his strength. If it were anyone else, they would probably be dead. At this point, the system prompted, "Congratulations on passing all tests of the Absolute Throne. Temporary ability values enhanced by points have been reclaimed." Just as the ram-horned monster was about to announce the birth of S City's new king, Dokja suddenly interrupted, "I have no intention of sitting on the throne." The ram-horned monster thought it had misheard. Whoever sat on the throne would be the king of the entire S City, able to control everything in this land. How could anyone not want that? However, Dokja coldly turned and announced to everyone present, "I will absolutely not ascend this throne. Likewise, if anyone else dares to covet it, be prepared to make an enemy of me." This was only because he, having read the complete novel, knew the throne's power came from an otherworldly god. Once one chose to sit on this throne, they were destined not to reach the end of the task. Even Yoo Joonghyuk in the original story only discovered this in his 41st return. However, the ram-horned monster was completely enraged. It snapped its fingers and issued a new task to everyone present. The task was to kill Dokja and take the throne for themselves. Everyone's eyes changed instantly, as if looking at a tantalizing piece of meat. Jung Shiwan was the first to sense something was wrong and stood in front of Dokja. Then came Sangha Yu. Although she didn't understand Dokja thoughts, she also believed the throne might not be a good thing. After some consideration, Min Ji-wan and the Maitreya king also chose to guard Dokja with the ram-horned monster's command. The scene immediately fell into chaos. Dokja asked them to help him buy time, because he was going to completely destroy this throne. He held the 4-tiger demon-slaying sword obtained from Han Shuang, then raised the plane spherical star chart and activated the special option, Star Echo. This time he would summon the Big Dipper constellation, which had 7 star lords. Each time he named one, the plane spherical star chart's uses would decrease by 1. Summoning all 7 star lords would bear a potentially fatal contingency. However, to gain the power to destroy the throne, he had to do this. He placed the depleted plane spherical star chart into the Dragon Cup, an equipment he had obtained from the Tyrant King. After sacrificing the S-grade item 3-wheel ring, it could regenerate the uses of the same level item plane spherical star chart. Then he summoned the last star lord of the Big Dipper, the Breaking Lord. After attaching the power of the 7 stars to the 4-tiger demon-slaying sword, the system sent a notification: the item 4-tiger demon-slaying sword has evolved into a star relic. This sword appeared to be a ceremonial sword made for sacrifices, but when used by a star lord of the Big Dipper, it possessed the power to sever constellation bonds. Dokja wanted to use this sword to cut the connection between the throne and the otherworldly god, thus completely destroying it. Just as he inserted the blade into the base, the entire throne began to shatter. Accompanied by a spine-chilling scream, the throne was cut in two, completely losing its power to control everything. The system sent a notification: the protection of the star relic Absolute Throne has disappeared. The 4th main quest was forcibly ended, and an unknown divine presence had noticed this world. What followed was the punishment of contingency. Dokja felt as if his heart was being crushed, with blood gushing from his mouth. The next second, the constellations in the night sky began to flicker. The constellations that had previously formed bonds with him now silently watched him. For some reason, Dokja felt the pain lessen. He heard the voices of all the constellations in his mind. "If this is the story you wish to show, then we welcome him to become a new legend." And at this moment, the system displayed a golden window. "Your new legend has been generated. The legend, King of a World Without Kings, has been born." Witnessing all this, the ram-horned monster was trembling with rage. It glared at Dokja viciously and said, "I will definitely make you pay." Then it snapped its fingers, making everyone present disappear one by one. Even Dokja hadn't anticipated this situation. Before he could react, he too was teleported away by the golden light. When he opened his eyes again, he saw his high school self. Back then, he was bullied by classmates every day and persevered only by following updates of this novel. But then he heard Jung Shiwan's voice. Dokja realized that he had unintentionally activated the 3rd stage of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, so he could see his teammates. Fortunately, the ram-horned monster hadn't harmed them, just teleported them to different places. It seemed to want to break up his forces to defeat them one by one. After disengaging the 3rd stage and returning to reality, Dokja found himself on a rooftop, with familiar surroundings. Looking over the railing, he realized this was the building of the company where he used to work. Back then, after working overtime, he would come to the roof with a colleague to relax, wondering if that colleague was still alive. Just as he was about to check the novel's current progress, he found his phone was out of battery. He had to enter the office building to look for a power bank. Just as he started rummaging through drawers, a flashlight beam shone on him. Recognizing the person, he was surprised. It was his colleague, Yin Cheng-gao. Seeing Dokja still alive, Yin Cheng-gao was delighted. He had been hiding in the company all these days, surviving on food from the warehouse. Dokja was curious about where he got the points to pay for survival. Yin Cheng-gao took Dokja outside the building. There stood many iron cages. People in the cages were killing each other, while spectators cheered continuously. This was how he obtained points, what he called a points farm. Because some constellations enjoyed watching humans fight, he and some colleagues would trick homeless people without food into cages, making them fight like slaves in a coliseum, collecting sponsorship from some constellations. Although many constellations found this boring, the tips they received were enough to maintain expenses. Just then, a man shouted that new goods had arrived. Dokja Kim turned to look. Their so-called new goods was actually Han Xiying. Han Xiying seemed to have fallen into a coma due to the teleportation. Yin Chenggao noticed Dokja Kim staring at her. Thinking Dokja Kim was interested in her, he generously decided to give Han Xiying to him. But there was one condition: to exchange her for the swords he carried. Since their first meeting, Yin Chenggao had noticed that both swords seemed to be high-level items. With these, he could surely capture more people and earn more points. Dokja Kim grimly put his hand on his shoulder and said, "There's no need to go to such trouble to earn points. I have a better way." He directly drew his sword and activated the Blade of Faith. All iron cages were instantly cut in two. The imprisoned slaves all gained freedom. The constellations who had been bored suddenly became excited. They had long grown tired of the Colosseum. Dokja Kim took advantage of the chaos to rescue Han Xiying. Unexpectedly, she was only pretending to be unconscious and complained that Dokja Kim had ruined her chance to counterkill. But her depleted strength and magic were real. She could only allow Dokja Kim to carry her. Dokja Kim had no interest in her. He saved people purely to accumulate karma points. This was a trait of the no-killing king. After accumulating 100 points, he could get another resurrection coin. Dokja Kim gave her a bottle of recovery potion and asked her to fight alongside him. The two attacked from front and back, quickly disposing of these human traffickers. Only Yin Chenggao remained, kneeling on the ground, not understanding why this happened. He said, "You were always an antisocial person, bullied in school, always gloomy at work, reading novels alone. Only people like Sangha Yu cared about you. Now you're playing the protagonist and exercising justice. It's pure hypocrisy." Before he could finish, Han Xiying silenced him forever. She didn't like hearing a supporting character talk trash. Dokja Kim inwardly thanked her. He might indeed be somewhat hypocritical, but he wouldn't abandon his bottom line as a human. The two then began cleaning up the battlefield. Dokja Kim found a suit, finally ending his barely clothed state. As for those who survived, Dokja Kim directed them to Zhongyi Road, as he had more important tasks at hand. Just as Han Xiying was about to escape while he wasn't paying attention, Dokja Kim grabbed her by the collar. Dokja Kim said, "I saved your life, shouldn't you repay me?" Then he snatched her phone. As expected, it contained a novel document, though the name had been changed to 5 seconds tier infinite regressor. Dokja Kim briefly flipped through it. Her novel was indeed plagiarized from beginning to end. The male protagonist was named Yoo Joonghyuk, his skill called the Eye of the Sage. The support constellation was changed to Contract Constellation. Pure plagiarism. However, Han Xiying had also read the first chapters. Knowing the 5th main quest, having her by his side could lower the difficulty. So Dokja Kim immediately opened the ghost shop, preparing to purchase a temporary contract. Opening the interface, he found all the items he had placed in the trading house were sold out, even the dragon's bone. Currently, the only avatars with such financial resources are Anna Kaft, who is sponsored by Nebula. Rambir Khan from L Country and Flying Tiger from Z Country had such financial power. But the important thing now was to sign a contract with Han Xiying. This was a common contract for teaming up. After signing, Dokja Kim would be the party A, ensuring Han Xiying's safety, and they couldn't harm each other during the contract period. Although Han Xiying was unhappy about being party B, she was indeed interested in Dokja Kim. She had a lie detection skill and wanted to use it to probe information Dokja Kim knew. The two first headed west. After the 5th task began, the first awakened calamity was in the east, but to confront it, they needed to go west first. Along the way, they found many werewolf corpses, which were also a species in the novel. Those watching the Starstream broadcast weren't just constellations, but also demon kings who refused to become constellations. Demon kings would give desperate people a chance to degenerate into non-human species, and werewolves were one such species. However, upon closer inspection, they found most werewolf bodies were blackened, a symptom of death by elemental bullets. Just as they wondered who used guns as weapons, a group of armed female prisoners approached them. Han Xiying recognized them. Previously, when recruiting disciples who had read the novel, a woman consistently rejected her invitation, and this person was the leader of these female prisoners. As the writer, Han Xiying could see all disciples' information, but couldn't see through this woman. Just as she was about to draw her sword in caution, a female prisoner suddenly opened fire, hitting a rock concealed by corpses nearby. Seeing this, Dokja Kim's heart trembled, because that was the meteorite he had been seeking. Meteorites were of two types, red ones for hatching calamities, and yellow ones containing guides that could stop calamities. Just as he wondered how these people had it, the female prisoner said, "You're Dokja Kim, right? This is a gift from our leader. Our leader asked me to tell you that we'll handle the northern calamity, the other 3 are left to you." After saying this, she left without looking back. Dokja Kim quickly used character profile activated on her. The woman was named Zhao Yinglin, support constellation first mage. More importantly, she possessed the executive attribute, a lower rank of the judge attribute that Zheng Xiyuan had. If even a subordinate was at this level, how powerful must their leader be? Thinking of this, he used character profile activated on the leader, and the result stunned him. The system prompted, "No information about this character is included in the novel." However, looking at that masked face, Dokja Kim thought of someone who made him feel both love and hate, someone who still gave him psychological trauma. She hadn't read this novel. The reason she knew its contents was because he had once told her the plot, but for now, he didn't want to recall the past. The most important thing now was to hatch this stone, because Han Xiying had high magic levels due to controlling clones. Dokja Kim gave her many magic potions, asking her to inject magic into the meteorite to accelerate hatching. 10 hours later, a golden light burst from the meteorite. A werewolf from another world slowly appeared. The system sent a notification. Due to the influence of the Amulet of Amuthal, obtained exclusive skill, Otherworld language translation. The Amulet of Amuthal was Dokja Kim's reward for killing the flame dragon, and this name was the race of the werewolf before him. Seeing the amulet in Dokja Kim's hand, the werewolf immediately knelt and saluted respectfully. The werewolf said, "Great dragon hunter, I am Likawen, a guide from Kronos. I've come to help stop the calamity." Looking at its exaggerated attribute panel, Han Shuing thought this was another hack, but only Dokja Kim knew these otherworldly species couldn't be relied upon. Kronos was where they originally lived, but one day it was destroyed by 5 calamities. The 5 species living there accepted the Starstream's contract to survive. Each preserved their strongest member, sent by Starstream to various worlds to help those worlds resist calamities. But once successful, they would use these planets as colonies to continue Kronos' civilization. And having been defeated by calamities before, they had no strength to fight them, only teaching some racial skills. Amuthal's racial skill was the wind path, the ability to control wind. Originally, this skill would be inherited by Yoo Joonghyuk, but now that Dokja Kim had killed the flame dragon, naturally only he could learn it. He thought he would quickly master it, but after practicing for several days, the wind he created wasn't even as powerful as a fart. Han Shuing laughed. "Yoo Joonghyuk learned it in 5 minutes, why can't you do it?" Dokja Kim was also puzzled. Left hand gale, right hand tempest, where the straight and curved lines meet would open the wind path. He was learning exactly according to the book's incantation. Even Likawen, who taught him, didn't understand. Knowing the incantation should enable learning the skill. Dokja Kim had to try another phrase. 4 winds meet to form directions. Another 4 winds form the 8 trigrams. As a result, Likawen instantly broke into a cold sweat after hearing this, as if realizing something. He said thank you and quickly sat cross-legged to cultivate, leaving a confused Dokja Kim at a loss. Dokja Kim was questioning his life, when suddenly a golden light appeared behind him. A familiar figure emerged. It was Bijing, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. Bijing had just finished dealing with the Management Bureau's inquiry meeting, temporarily avoiding being caught, and came with 2 pieces of news. First, because more and more constellations were joining his channel, he was about to be promoted to a middle-level boblin, so he came specifically to thank Dokja Kim. Second, he brought someone, the critically injured Yoo Joonghyuk. Dokja Kim was shocked. When they last parted, he did give Yoo Joonghyuk a punch, but it shouldn't have left him near death. Using character profile activated, Dokja Kim discovered Yoo Joonghyuk had been poisoned, and it was that woman's poison. Fortunately, the novel mentioned how to cure this poison. Dokja Kim immediately purchased materials from the shop and prepared the antidote on the spot. Han Shuing was worried, recalling when her head was stepped on, fearing Yoo Joonghyuk would kill her when he woke up. Dokja Kim said it wouldn't happen, but he was actually a bit afraid too. But now the important thing was to save him. If he died, the entire world would be reset. Unexpectedly, as soon as he fed him the medicine, he received a tip, and then was tipped again with every dose, as if he wasn't saving someone but playing some strange game. After a while, Yoo Joonghyuk woke up. Dokja Kim knew he couldn't speak yet, so he used the item White Day Secret Meeting. It could create a chat room for 2 people to communicate mentally, and ensure others couldn't see the chat content. As soon as connected, Yoo Joonghyuk told Dokja Kim to go east immediately, as the calamities there were about to awaken. The one awakened, it wasn't an enemy, but his lover from his second reincarnation, Lee Shuihua. The poison was also from her. Speaking of this, Yoo Joonghyuk's tone was somewhat regretful. He had thought they could fight side by side as in the previous reincarnation. But for some reason, Lee Shuihua seemed like a different person, her attribute changing from medicine immortal to poison girl. Regarding Dokja Kim's destruction of the throne, Yoo Joonghyuk was surprisingly not blaming him. He also felt something was wrong with the throne, but destroying it would cause errors in meteorite positions. The speed at which Kronos invaded this world would also accelerate. As they spoke, many otherworldly plants appeared around the street. Some even grew directly from the sky. At this moment, Han Shuing released her clones, because a group of people was surrounding them. Dokja Kim handed Yoo Joonghyuk to her and was about to draw his sword to fight. Unexpectedly, these people's weapons were bows and arrows. One clone was shot and immediately poisoned to death. Just as more arrows were about to rain down, a golden spider web suddenly appeared in the sky, blocking all the arrows. When Dokja Kim saw the owner of this spider web, he was too shocked to speak, because it was Sangha-yu, from whom he had been separated for so long. Just days after parting with Dokja Kim, Sangha-yu's image and temperament had completely changed. Her once unremarkable thread skills had become deadly weapons. With just a light pull, all enemies on the scene were beheaded. Her fierce movements contained not a trace of unnecessary emotion. Dokja Kim was stunned. Was this still the Sangha-yu he knew? Sangha-yu quickly noticed him. Since Yoo Joonghyuk was still injured, she covered their retreat into a building. Once temporarily safe, Sangha-yu finally recounted her experience. She had been teleported to East Hanjiang with Kong Bidu, and during a battle with a local organization 2 days ago. Kong Bidu voluntarily stayed behind to save her, and his fate remained unknown. Dokja Kim told her not to worry. His contract with Kong Bidu hadn't been terminated, which meant he was still alive. However, Han Shuing remained suspicious of Sangha-yu, not to mention the battle suit and short knife. Even with a beginner's package sponsored by a support constellation, one's level couldn't rise so quickly. Sangha-yu finally noticed her and asked, "Who are you?" Unexpectedly, Han Shuing directly said, "I'm the apostle who attacked you." Sangha-yu's expression changed instantly as she drew her knife, ready for a fight to the death. Dokja Kim quickly explained that Han Shuing wasn't an enemy, but Sangha-yu countered, "The The people of Jongwoo Road were killed by her. Have you forgotten? Dokja Kim was momentarily speechless. At that time, Sang-Yu was the deputy representative of Jongwoo Road. In her view, Han Xiang was indeed guilty of terrible crimes. Just as he was thinking about how to mediate, a flash of light exploded outside the window. A red goblin appeared from it. Dokja Kim recognized it. It was the popular broadcaster from Starstream, Du Jiao. For some reason, Beijing was also following behind it. Du Jiao distributed an emergency mission to them. Stop the calamity from hatching in East River District, with a 2-hour time limit. The person currently hatching the calamity was Li Shuihua. According to the mission information, the calamity would be born in 2 hours. Han Xiang and Sang-Yu could only temporarily reconcile to deal with Li Shuihua's guards together. The two were responsible for the frontal assault. Han Xiang released her clones to taunt, while Sang-Yu used silk threads to kill the pursuers. Dokja Kim couldn't help but marvel. Hermes' walking method, Ariadne's thread, Sang-Yu's support constellation definitely had issues, but there was no time to think about this. Now, under their cover, he had already found the meteorite. As expected, Li Shuihua was guarding it. There were 3 ways to awaken the calamity meteorite. One was to let the meteorite hatch naturally. The second was to use the power within the meteorite in advance. The third was what Li Shuihua was doing now, having her followers pray to the meteorite, injecting magical power into it. He just didn't understand why Li Shuihua, though one of the 10 evils, was still considered part of the human faction. Why would she do something so self-destructive? Dokja Kim struck with his sword, but Li Shuihua blocked it with her bare hand. Dokja Kim was shocked to discover her hand seemed to have transformed into an insect's claw. When he activated character profile activated, he saw the reason. This character was currently infected with a parasite. This character's physical body was currently controlled by Antinous. Dokja Kim had seen this term in the novel. The parasite mentioned here, like the werewolf referred to by Amathal, was one of the 5 races from Kronos. The one trying to hatch the calamity wasn't Li Shuihua, but the parasite queen Antinous controlling her body. See being exposed? She attacked with her sharp claws. However, Dokja Kim directly grabbed her, then threw her like a cannonball, smashing her hard into the wall. Originally, killing her would directly prevent the calamity's birth, but Dokja Kim hesitated. Li Shuihua was Liu Zhonghe's lover. If he could free her from the infection, he wouldn't need to kill her. However, at this moment, Liu Zhong sent a message telling him to kill her quickly. What mattered was not one person's life, but the survival of this world. Unfortunately, it was too late. Li Shuihua seized the opportunity and violently struck out. The scratched area quickly turned black. This was her main skill, 1,000 souls poison, a toxin made from 1,000 extracted souls. Even Liu Zhonghe would die if touched by it. However, Dokja Kim pulled out a book and said, "It seemed you didn't know who this body's support constellation was. Otherwise, you wouldn't have used this skill." It turned out that before becoming the poison girl, Li Shuihua's true attribute was actually medical immortal. This stemmed from her support constellation, Divine Dr. Xu Jun, the author of this medical book. During the previous 7 Kings War, Dokja Kim had taken the opportunity to collect many items, including this book called Donyi Bogam. He collected all 8 volumes, gaining the effect of an S-class poison-proof pearl, so the 1,000 souls poison was useless against him. Dokja Kim grabbed Li Shuihua's hand as he spoke, then used the Donyi Bogam skill, acupuncture, with several quick strikes on her body. Antinous, parasitizing Li Shuihua's body, immediately let out a wail, then transformed into a puddle of liquid that ran out of Li Shuihua's mouth. Free from the infection, Li Shuihua regained consciousness. She tried to ask Dokja Kim's identity, but Dokja Kim told her it was Liu Zhonghe who sent him to save her, and she should thank him. Just then, the liquid suddenly flew into the air, then condensed into Antinous' true form. Dokja Kim was about to tell Li Shuihua to take cover when he was hit by a poison sting. Antinous was, after all, a powerful being on par with Li Kaowen. Although Dokja Kim had raised his agility to level, he still couldn't dodge the attack. Just as he was about to be struck, the amulet in his pocket began to buzz. The next second, a violent gust of wind arrived. When Antinous regained her senses, she found her companion Li Kaowen kneeling before Dokja Kim. Li Kaowen turned back angrily, questioning if Antinous had gone mad. As guides, their primary duty was to fight against calamities. Yet Antinous wanted to release a calamity early, which was simply absurd. However, Antinous didn't bother to explain and directly flew upward. Activating her level Insect Queen skill, Acceleration Wings, she attacked with terrifying wind pressure the next second. But Li Kaowen merely sidestepped, dodging her storm-like attacks. This was the new skill he learned from Dokja Kim. The wind path could be used not only for attacks, but also as a stepping technique to dodge or even deflect force. Just when Antinous was feeling exhausted from her continuous attacks, Li Kaowen seized the opportunity to launch a wind cannon. With just one strike, Antinous was crippled. However, Antinous' eyes were filled with hatred. She could not forget the humiliation of her homeland's destruction. Even in death, she wanted revenge on humans. So she used her last strength to fly toward the meteorite, ready to completely release the calamity. Dokja Kim and Li Kaowen attacked simultaneously, cutting Antinous in half. However, they were still too late. The meteorite had received enough magical power. The next second, the calamity inside broke out of its shell. The mere burst of magical power sent Dokja Kim flying. Sang-Yu looked incredulously toward the meteorite's location. What emerged was not a monster, but a long-haired young man. The system sent a prompt. Mission failed. The question calamity had descended upon your world. At the same time, a window popped up in front of Dokja Kim. Due to the early hatching calamity, you could not attack the question calamity for 3 minutes. Dokja Kim had no time to worry about this. He had to quickly tell Sang-Yu to kill the question calamity as fast as possible, because this calamity's true form came from Earth, and was the human gentleman who proved the viability of the second survival method in the novel. He was known as the first returnee, Ming Rixiang. Before Song Ge-yu could react, Ming Rixiang had already approached her. Then he asked a question. Is that man lying on the ground your boyfriend? Song Ge-yu pulled her hand away in disgust, saying, none of your business. As a result, the system prompted. The first question had been resolved. The first returnee, Ming Rixiang's first seal had been released. Could this really mean total annihilation? As the name suggested, the question Calamity's power came from questions. He randomly asked questions to passersby, and as soon as they carelessly answered him, one layer of his seal weakened. When all 40 layers of seals were removed, he would regain his full power and then destroy everything. Han Shuing released all her clones at once, hoping to block his actions with numbers. Unexpectedly, Ming Rixiang continued asking, how old are you? Do you have a boyfriend? Han Shuing became impatient with his questions and cursed, it's none of your damn business. The next second, the system sent a prompt. The third, fourth, and fifth questions had been resolved. The returnee Ming Rixiang had released 5 layers of seals. Dokja Kim explained that any response would be considered an answer, so they shouldn't have any communication with him. Fortunately, Song Ge-yu had fully grasped the rules. She leaped into the air, once again summoning the golden spider web from before. While the clones restricted him, she used the spider web to trap him. The recovered Dokja Kim took the opportunity to strike, but didn't cause fatal damage. Ming Rixiang seized the chance to activate his skill, Blink, instantly teleporting out of the spider web. Dokja Kim was about to pursue, but found Song Ge-yu standing motionless, having lost consciousness. It turned out she used multiple star marks simultaneously, causing her body to suffer backlash. But Dokja Kim had no time to investigate her identity now. If Ming Rixiang escaped to a crowded place and got uninformed people to answer his questions, it would be beyond salvation. However, just as he feared, as soon as he gave chase, the goblin Duzhao suddenly appeared above. With a malicious smile, it announced a mission to all the survivors in S City. Whoever eliminated Ming Rixiang could replace him as a returnee and be teleported to another world to start a harem. Many people showed expressions of anticipation, but only Dokja Kim knew that so-called returnees survived through the most humiliating methods. They were tricked into being teleported to other worlds. Only by destroying that world could they return. Ming Rixiang was transported to Kronos and endured 100 years of living hell before destroying the insect race there to gain freedom. This was also why Antinous hated humans. However, ordinary people didn't know any of this. They flocked around Ming Rixiang, wanting to know if there were really elf girlfriends in other worlds. Ming Rixiang took the opportunity to continuously ask questions. By the time Dokja Kim found him, he had already released the 14th seal, regaining nearly half his power. With just a level 3 skill, he burned all the survivors on the street to ashes. Han Shuing and Dokja Kim tried to run, but Ming Rixiang caught up instantly, then punched them flying 10 meters away. Watching everything in the city, Yoo Joonghyuk could not understand. They could have prevented the Calamity's birth by killing Li Shuihua or helping Li Kaowen kill Antinous directly. But Dokja Kim kept hesitating, insisting on finding a perfect solution, causing them to miss the opportunity. Dokja Kim seemed to be enlightened by these words. As Yoo Joonghyuk said, having the script didn't mean being omniscient. All along, he had considered himself a prophet but forgot his true identity as a reader. Thinking of this, he regained his footing and activated his exclusive skill, Bookmark. There were 4 bookmark slots available, with the 4th still vacant. After browsing through the character directory that could be included in bookmarks, Dokja Kim revealed a slight smile. Although he couldn't use people from outside the novel like Song Ge-yu as bookmarks, he could use almost any character from the novel. So, under Han Shuing's shocked gaze, he immediately activated the skill, Wind Path. He hadn't actually learned this skill, but it didn't matter now, because he could directly copy it with a bookmark. Ming Rixiang recognized this as the werewolf's skill, so he directly used his Blink skill, planning to go ask questions to others to unlock more seals. Dokja Kim quickly caught up using Wind Path, but was still a step too late. The system prompted that Ming Rixiang's EH seal had been released. Dokja Kim understood that simple attacks could no longer kill him. He could only use a variation of Wind Path, but he needed someone to buy time. Just as he was thinking this, a black shadow descended from the sky, directly smashing Ming Rixiang into the ground. That person was the newly recovered Yoo Joonghyuk, but recovered yet not fully recovered. He could barely prevent Ming Rixiang from escaping, but this was enough. Dokja Kim seized the opportunity to activate the incantation from the book. 4 winds meet to form directions. Another 4 winds form the 8 trigrams. A violent gust suddenly appeared above Ming Rixiang's head, but instead of attacking, it formed a wall to trap him. This was why Dokja Kim wanted to learn Wind Path. This variation could extract the air around the target, creating a vacuum-like environment. Although Ming Rixiang could release seals by asking questions, as long as he didn't speak for a period of time, his seals would regenerate. At this point, Yoo Joonghyuk reminded him, don't forcefully control the wind, but guide it. Dokja Kim quickly understood, so he narrowed the control range, concentrating power on one point, only sealing Ming Rixiang's mouth and nose. After all, his body structure was still human. Without air, he would suffocate. Soon, all his seals regenerated, and he kneeled on the ground in pain, begging for mercy. Dokja Kim could understand this to some extent. From the moment he was chosen to be transported to Kronos, he lost control over his fate. Though somewhat pitiful, he was destined to be eliminated. After Ming Rixiang completely collapsed, the system displayed a golden window again. New legend acquired. New legend. The one who fought against a miracle. Obtained equipment. Possibility of new star mark. Just then, Duzhao appeared above their heads again, starting to settle the mission rewards. Since the Ming Rixiang hunting mission was privately issued by it, the rewards came from its own pocket. But it looked to Baijing, wanting Baijing to pay on its behalf. Baijing was initially reluctant, but considering that Duzhao was a major major streamer with tens of thousands of subscribers, and that its our country was the leading country for the 6th mission, it had to agree to cover the payment. Besides the amulet from the parasite race, it also gave Dokja Kim an extra reward to choose one item from 3 S-grade artifacts, and it secretly recommended the Infinite Dimensions alternate space coat because it was the same model as Yoo Joonghyuk's and would be useful later. However, Dokja interrupted, saying that to exchange for the extra reward, they needed to privately chat in its goblin invisibility hat. The so-called goblin invisibility hat was actually the goblin's reality room, where one could see their true forms. Dokja Kim felt it had bad intentions and firmly refused. Unexpectedly, Dokja revealed a sinister smile and said, "I don't think you can refuse." Then it spoke to the constellations in the sky. "Everyone, we've discovered a channel in S-City that's deliberately creating fake content." Then it snapped its fingers, playing a video in the air. The video showed Dokja Kim's previous battle scenes. Dokja narrated over the footage. Dokja Kim had 3 chances to prevent the calamity's birth. He could have killed Li Shuihua, or killed Antinous, or killed Ming Risxiang right when he was born. But he didn't do so because he and his channel host Beijing conspired to deliberately hide his power, and finally pretended to be weak but was actually strong to create dramatic effect and harvest donations. Wasn't this deception? Upon hearing this, the constellations watching the live stream reacted. Many people left Beijing's live room and canceled their subscriptions. Due to the drastic reduction in channel size, Beijing's body immediately began to shrink, turning back into the lowest level goblin. Dokja Kim realized this was a trap set by Dokja for Beijing, with the aim of pulling him to its side. Fearing Beijing might suffer more harm, Dokja Kim reluctantly agreed. Dokja was very pleased, then snapped its fingers, teleporting Dokja Kim into its invisibility hat. Outside the invisibility hat was a magnificent galaxy, where goblins normally broadcast to the constellations. Dokja then summoned Beijing as well. It wanted Dokja Kim to sign a new broadcasting contract in front of Beijing, while invalidating his previous contract with Beijing. In the new contract, not only must donations be split, but there were also clauses restricting his freedom. Dokja Kim cursed inwardly, "Damn it," but outwardly pretended to agree. He even mentioned that Beijing's channel had several top-tier constellations who spent generously, and he could help bring them over. Specifically, he would act as an intermediary to enter Dokja's channel and redirect the flow, attracting the previous constellations. Dokja's interest was immediately piqued, and it laughed, saying, "I knew I didn't misjudge you." Beijing looked utterly dejected, unable to believe Dokja Kim would treat it this way. As Dokja opened the permissions, a light appeared beneath Dokja Kim's feet. He was then teleported to Dokja's channel. Unlike Beijing, who only broadcast on Earth, Dokja's domain extended even to other worlds. Its subscriber count was several times that of Beijing's, which was exactly what Dokja Kim wanted. He cleared his throat and began his self-introduction, first promoting his outstanding achievements, then emphasized that he still had no support constellation, immediately attracting many constellations' attention. He continued, "Since H country and R country would join forces for the 6th mission, I want to hold a joint activity. Interested constellations, please go to Beijing's channel. Early arrivals can participate in a points lottery." As soon as he finished speaking, the constellations in Dokja's channel became restless, all flocking to Beijing's live room. Beijing was shocked. It had never seen so many constellations in its life. Dokja tried to stop them, but it was too late. Dokja Kim continued, "As everyone knows, S-City's 5th mission is approaching. Before that, there will be a second support constellation selection activity. If this channel reaches over 10,000 subscribers by the support constellation selection day, I will randomly select one lucky constellation to become my support constellation." After saying this, he cut the connection. Dokja was completely enraged, never imagining that a mere human would dare to trick it. Just as Dokja was about to use its authority to kill him, its spellcasting was forcibly interrupted the next second. It turned back in terror to see Beijing, now twice its size. Now its subscription count had surpassed Dokja's, and it had leveled up to a mid-level goblin. Dokja still wanted to warn it not to cause trouble. The next second, a fist landed directly on its face, sending it flying through the invisibility hat into the vast galaxy. After calming down, Beijing became somewhat worried. The channel's subscription count was already at 5,000. It knew Dokja Kim wouldn't choose any support constellation, and when the constellations discovered they'd been tricked, it would be very difficult. But Dokja Kim assured it he had a plan. It just needed to hand over the reward items. Moments later, Dokja Kim teleported back with a brand new appearance. Han Shiying said, "Why did you choose the same coat as Yoo Joonghyuk? Are you two a couple?" Actually, Dokja Kim wanted to choose black, but was told by Beijing that the black ones were sold out, only white ones remained. And this item's rating wasn't quite 3 seconds. It was purely because its creator was powerful. At this time, Yoo Joonghyuk, not fully recovered, was using the skill, hibernation. Dokja Kim and Han Shiying prepared to leave first, mainly fearing he might beat them up when he woke up. He entrusted Yoo Joonghyuk to Li Shuihua, telling them to head west to meet with Hyunseo Li and then deal with the ice calamity in the west. Currently, the flame dragon in the south and Ming Risxiang in the east had been resolved. The King of Wanderers was responsible for the north. They only needed to worry about the calamity in the central area, but before that, he had to first clarify Sangayu's identity. Sangayu had fallen into a deep sleep. Dokja Kim pointed his sword at her throat and coldly said, "If you don't want to see your avatar die, then show yourself now." The next second, a golden light descended from the sky, followed by a system prompt. The 4th wall had offset the spiritual impact for you. Sangayu slowly stood up and said, "Humble human, you court death." Sangayu's support constellation finally appeared. Dokja Kim never imagined her support constellation would be the entire Olympus Nebula, and their first words upon revealing themselves were, "Humble human, you court death." It turned out that in this novel's world, constellations were broadly divided into two categories. One type was unrestrained free constellations, the other belonged to certain mythological systems. The union of these constellations was called a nebula, with Olympus representing the Greek mythology nebula. Seeing Dokja Kim dare to threaten Sang-Yu, they angrily prepared to kill him. However, Dokja Kim wasn't worried at all. This world was constrained by contingency, which wouldn't allow an entire nebula to descend. The one possessing Sang-Yu was the lover of the abandoned labyrinth, an eminent constellation of Olympus, whose true name was Ariadne. In mythology, she once helped Theseus navigate a labyrinth using thread, thus gaining legends related to thread. She didn't have the power to kill Dokja Kim, so she was just bluffing. However, Dokja Kim was interested in trading with her. He would ask Ariadne 3 questions, and in return, would answer 3 of her questions. This was the most common trading method among constellations, also known as the 3-question exchange. The 3-question exchange was sacred and inviolable. All questions had to be answered truthfully, with each party having 1 chance to refuse to answer. The exchange ended when the 3 lights above their heads went out. Dokja Kim's biggest confusion was naturally the purpose of the Olympian gods. Why would they descend into Sang-Yu's body? Ariadne coldly said, because this world was perishing, and Sang-Yu was the breakwater closest to destruction. Just as he wanted to ask what this meant, the system prompted that it was the other party's turn to ask. Ariadne asked Dokja Kim which support constellation he would choose later. The constellations in the live room immediately boiled over, each calling out their own names. But Dokja Kim directly chose to refuse. He could not reveal the answer to this question. He then continued to ask, since Sang-Yu was the person closest to destruction, could it be understood that I am the one bringing destruction? Ariadne's expression instantly became serious. Just as she was about to speak, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck her, forcibly ending her possession of Sang-Yu. Dokja Kim involuntarily looked up at the sky and saw a void-like shadow extending from the clouds. The system sent a warning. The 4th wall had offset the spiritual impact you received. Meanwhile, the severely wounded Antinous was wandering the streets. She was originally on the verge of death, but fortunately, the shockwave from Ming Risiang's birth also severely injured Likawan. Antinous took the opportunity to parasitize his body. Just as she was looking for the next host, she suddenly sensed a presence from her own race. Curious as to why there was an insect king in this world, following the aura, she only saw a little boy. When he saw Antinous, he immediately showed a kind smile. It was a bug he'd never seen before. On the other side, Dokja Kim woke up from his coma. He just had a dream that Li Jiang captured another insect king. Sang-Yu had also regained consciousness, seemingly not remembering being possessed. Now their group had 2 objectives. 1 was to prepare for the central calamity. 2 was to search for Kong Bidu, who went missing near the Han River. But whichever they did first, they had to cross the Han River, which was filled with Yulong. Although Yulongs were only level 7 creatures, and they could easily defeat them with their current strength. The problem was there were too many. They could easily drown while fighting. While considering countermeasures, a group of wanderers approached them. Han Shuiying, having been tricked by Yin Chenggao before, quickly drew her sword on alert. But Sang-Yu opened her backpack and proactively walked over to share her food with them. Han Shuiying thought she'd gone mad. In the apocalypse, the most dangerous thing was human nature. Sang-Yu gloomily said, if they tried to harm me, I could kill them all. But conversely, if I was determined, I could also save them all. Dokja Kim stared at her speechlessly. Compared to before the novel descended, Sang-Yu had changed too much. Was this still the girl he knew? Just then, a little brown-haired girl ran over, holding food and saying thank you to her. The moment Han Shuiying saw her, a flash of killing intent appeared in her eyes. Dokja Kim noticed her abnormal reaction, but neither of them said anything at the moment. Back at their base, Han Shuiying kept complaining, believing they'd definitely been targeted by the Wanderers, who would eventually come to repay kindness with enmity. However, after grumbling for 2.5 hours, no one appeared. Until 4 hours later, she suddenly heard the sound of a door opening. She excitedly said, I told you those people were still thinking about us, but was disappointed to find it was the brown-haired little girl from earlier. She'd brought a blanket as a thank you gift for Sang-Yu. After delivering the blanket, she was about to leave, when Han Shuiying suddenly confronted her, stabbing her sword into the ground in front of the girl, saying, you can't leave. Sang-Yu turned back angrily, demanding to know what she was doing. Han Shuiying turned to Dokja Kim and said, you knew she couldn't leave too, right? Otherwise, why would you suggest staying here overnight? If you couldn't bring yourself to do it, then I'll kill her. Sang-Yu thought she'd lost her mind again. Why kill a child for no reason? Dokja Kim sighed and said, Han Shuiying was right. Because this child was the 5th calamity, 5 days from now, she would destroy the entire city. The 5th calamity was known as the Flood Calamity, and was also the calamity Dokja Kim was most reluctant to face. Her true form was this girl called Shen Yusheng. Although she didn't even have a support constellation now, in 5 days she would destroy the entire city. Because the calamity that appears wasn't her current self, but her future self. That calamity was something even Lu Zhonghe could not withstand. In the 3rd reincarnation, Shen Yusheng, who grew into the Beast King, personally killed Lu Zhonghe. If it weren't for the delusional evil ghost Namwoon Kim's intervention, Lu Zhonghe couldn't even have been resurrected. But there was no Namwoon Kim in this world line. To prevent tragedy, they could only kill Shen Yusheng now. This way, her future self would also disappear. Dokja Kim had seen this girl's past in the novel. She persevered until the 5th mission without any relatives. During this time, she killed people and betrayed companions. These experiences had a profound impact on her. Perhaps on the surface she seemed cute and innocent, but inside, she was already riddled with wounds. Dokja Kim couldn't bring himself to harm her. The ending he hoped for didn't include Shen Yusheng's death, so So he made a bold decision. He would become Shen Yusheng's support constellation. Although he himself didn't have a support constellation, he had money and lots of it. He wanted to make Shen Yusheng extremely powerful in the next 5 days, thereby interfering with the predetermined world line. Han Shuiying was infuriated by his behavior, stating she wouldn't provide any more help, and his support constellation declaration also caused an uproar among the constellations, especially that mysterious strategist who sent a point donation while showing intriguing interest in his strategy. Since the end of the first support constellation selection, Dokja Kim had noticed that this mysterious strategist not only spent lavishly, but each reaction was full of deeper meaning, not at all like an ordinary eminent constellation. Yet there wasn't a shred of information about him in the novel, which was really suspicious. Just then, Shen Yusheng's voice interrupted his thoughts. After sponsoring 2 beginner packages, Shen Yusheng's multi-interaction skill had been upgraded to level 8. This was a skill identical to Li Jiang's, used for taming or controlling monsters. However, no matter how much she practiced, she still couldn't tame even a level 8 monster. Dokja Kim could only guess it might be related to her psychological trauma. She once had a pet dog that died in battle, but this was also the key to her taming talent. Just as he was about to encourage her to practice more, Shen Yusheng suddenly stared at his face and said, "I'll work hard," then ran away. Dokja Kim was puzzled by what she meant, then suddenly remembered that Shen Yusheng in the novel seemed to be attracted to good-looking people. She deeply admired Yoo Joonghyuk and had argued with Liu Mia more than once because of it. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine, thinking, I'm trying so hard to help her. What if she runs off to Liu Joonghyuk later? He quickly went to Han Shuiying and said, "Let me ask you a question, and you must answer honestly. How did you think I looked?" Han Shuiying said, in exasperation, "Are you sick?" But Dokja Kim was genuinely curious. From the reactions of people he'd met recently, they all seemed unsatisfied with his appearance. Yet Dokja Kim recalled his high school selfies, thinking he looked decent back then. Han Shuiying stood up helplessly and said, "I have only one evaluation for you, accept reality." From this moment on, Dokja Kim swore in his heart that no matter what, he could not let Shen Yusheng meet Liu Joonghyuk. For the rest of the day, he took every opportunity to hunt nearby monsters. As soon as he earned points, he used them to upgrade Shen Yusheng, finally allowing her to learn advanced multi-interaction. At this point, the system notified him that someone had resolved the ice calamity in the west. This surprised Dokja Kim. He hadn't expected Liu Joonghyuk and the others to be so quick, which meant he should have met with Hyunseo Lee by now. In the dead of night, when Sanga Yu and Shen Yusheng were fast asleep, Han Shuiying rarely initiated a conversation with him. At first, he thought she was still upset, but Han Shuiying's tone was unprecedentedly serious. "Do you really think I plagiarized the novel 3 Ways to Survive in a Doomed World? But those elements were so common now, occasional similarities were normal, right?" Dokja Kim didn't believe a word of it. Han Shuiying then activated her lie detection skill on herself and said, "I really didn't plagiarize." Surprisingly, the system confirmed the statement was true. Han Shuiying continued, "I have indeed read 3 Ways to Survive in a Doomed World, but the similarity of my novel to it was just a coincidence. I simply wrote down the dreams I had." Dokja Kim remained silent for a moment, ultimately deciding not to pursue this issue further, telling her to go to sleep while he kept watch until dawn. But at the same time, he felt somewhat relieved, knowing he wasn't the only one who knew this world was a novel. This gave him a strange sense of security. However, this sense of security was shattered as he woke with a start. He suddenly sat up, realizing he had fallen asleep at some point. Then he discovered something even more shocking. Han Shuiying was lying on the ground for some unknown reason, already turned into a cold corpse. Han Shuiying died, silently passing away in a corner where no one cared. For the first time, Dokja Kim's eyes lost their light, not knowing who killed her. But he quickly noticed something was wrong. Her body had no external wounds. Could it be poison? That's when he noticed some powder on the food they ate last night. It was scales from an otherworldly plant that could make people fall into a deep sleep. He suddenly understood, drawing his sword and stabbing Han Shuiying's corpse. Just as he expected, the body turned into a dissipating shadow. It turned out this was just Han Shuiying's clone. Clones could only be eliminated by headshots. She used this method to escape the temporary contract's punishment. Dokja Kim didn't understand why she left. Perhaps she wouldn't benefit from working with him, or maybe their ideologies clashed. After lamenting for a while, he decided to continue his journey. Meanwhile, Han Shuiying was silently typing a line in her novel document on a rooftop not far away. "Don't know if we'll be friends or foes when we meet again." That same afternoon, Shen Yusheng's magic and agility reached the mission's limit, level 60. She also officially signed a back contract with Dokja Kim. This meant she could no longer choose any other constellation, and Dokja Kim became the first avatar to have an avatar. With this, he could implement the first step in fighting the rampant calamity, swimming across the Hanjiang teeming with Yulongs. He placed Shen Yusheng on a foam box while he pulled the box into the river. The real crisis wasn't the Yulongs, but Shen Yusheng. They needed to deliberately create a crisis to awaken Shen Yusheng quickly. Specifically, he would act as bait for the Yulongs, pretending to be in a desperate battle to stimulate her potential. Shen Yusheng's taming skill had already reached level 9. When she sincerely wanted to save someone, she could evolve her innate attributes like Zheng Shiwan and Hyunseo Lee. Just as Dokja Kim was about to be eaten, golden light suddenly burst from her body. The system sent a notification that Avatar Shen Yusheng had entered transformation state. A golden hand appeared behind her, the precursor to her activating her taming ability. At that moment, all Yulong stopped moving and bowed to the crown formed by the golden light. Dokja Kim couldn't help but marvel. This was the future Beast King. No wonder it could become the strongest of the 5 calamities. After nightfall, Dokja Kim and Sanga Yu sat on the back of a Yulong. This was a level 5 sea beast summoned summoned by Shen Yusheng, the queen of all Yulangs. Dokja Kim hadn't expected her summoning level to be even higher than Li Jiang's. This also worried Sanga Yu. If the current Shen Yusheng became stronger, would her future self as a calamity be even stronger? Dokja Kim rejected her guess, because the reason future Shen Yusheng appeared here was due to Liu Zhong's return, using reel of film as a metaphor. The current Shen Yusheng and her future self were like two separate reels of film with different past experiences, unable to influence each other. But if the current Shen Yusheng died, it would be like the film catching fire. Since the two reels were spliced together, the future Shen Yusheng would also disappear. This was why Han Xing wanted to kill her directly. As they spoke, the Yulong they were riding reached the opposite shore. After disembarking, Dokja Kim affectionately patted Shen Yusheng's head. At her age, she loved being praised. But suddenly, a tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. Looking up, they saw a giant mantis staring intently at them. Dokja Kim was about to draw his sword when he heard a familiar call. Li Jiang emerged from the mantis's head with Han Dongxun. After exchanging greetings, they learned Li Jiang had found them using insects, and Han Dongxun was someone he met on the way, so he brought him along. However, when Shen Yusheng heard Li Jiang calling Dokja Kim and Big Brother, she suddenly felt threatened. She immediately hugged Dokja Kim's other arm, declaring her ownership with fierce eyes. Li Jiang glared back without hesitation. Dokja Kim was helpless. One was the Insect King, one was the Beast King. Perhaps this was natural rivalry. Just then, the system notified them that someone had resolved the water calamity in the north. Li Jiang suddenly remembered something. He had sent insects to find his lost teammates and learned Zheng Xiyuan was in the north. Dokja Kim was shocked. It seemed she and King of Wanderers had jointly resolved the northern calamity. So far, 4 of the 5 calamities had been resolved, leaving only the central flood calamity. Just as they were about to head to the calamity meteorite's location, the ram-horned monster suddenly teleported in front of them. It announced the final step to activate the 5th task, the highly anticipated second support constellation selection. At the same time, it glared at Dokja Kim. Because of his unauthorized teleportation last time, it had been summoned by the administration and suffered consequences. Although it wanted revenge, as a goblin, it could only act within the rules. As soon as selection permissions were granted, countless constellations gathered around Dokja Kim. The Beijing channel subscribers were about to reach 10,000. They all eagerly waited for Dokja Kim to fulfill his promise. Of course, Dokja Kim had no intention of choosing any constellation, but when he saw a certain name in the representative selection list, his heart skipped a beat. The Heavenly Scribe, this seemingly ordinary code, actually symbolized Heaven's recognized second-in-command, Archangel Metatron. In Judaism, he was even called the Prime Minister of Heaven. Choosing him as a support constellation was equivalent to gaining authority second only to God. With 1 minute left until the support constellation selection, Beijing subscribers were just 7 away from 10,000. As the constellations anxiously awaited the result, the countdown reached 0. Beijing's subscriber count stopped at. Dokja Kim displayed a helpless expression and said, "What a pity, it seems I still can't choose a support constellation this time." The constellations immediately became furious, demanding refunds. To appease everyone, Beijing immediately proposed a compensation activity. A bounty mission was announced to everyone. Mission content: hunt down Dokja Kim. The more cruelly he is killed, the more points earned. Next, a red icon appeared above his head. Those who had just obtained support constellations immediately became red-eyed, surrounding him in a coordinated attack. Although there was an insurmountable level gap between them and Dokja Kim, in this mission, constellations could restrict Dokja Kim through donations. After locking his attack power and agility attributes, Dokja Kim could only run. He appeared panicked but was actually calm inside, as this was all planned with Beijing. Beijing's channel had a maximum limit of 10,000 subscribers from the beginning, which is why he proposed the 10,000 subscription threshold. This also constituted fraud, which would be judged by contingency if discovered. But Dokja Kim couldn't worry about that now. He jumped straight into the turbulent Hanjiang, then activated his exclusive skill, Bookmark. He removed Qian Renhao's bookmark slot and added the new character Shen Yusheng. The system prompted that his understanding of this character was high enough to activate 2 skills simultaneously. Dokja Kim unhesitatingly chose Taming and advanced multidimensional communication. Then, mimicking Shen Yusheng's operations, he summoned the level 5 sea beast, the Yulong Queen. The Yulong Queen carried him, riding the wind and waves. In just seconds, she delivered him to his destination, Luod Island, the location of the last calamity meteorite. However, as soon as they landed, several survivors with flight skills pursued him. Dokja Kim tried to hide under a tree to temporarily avoid the attack. Unexpectedly, a familiar face appeared before everyone with a knife in hand. With a swift move, the leader's arm was immediately dismembered. The newcomer was none other than the naval battle girl, Li Jihui. Like Sanga Yu, in just a few days of separation, her physical strength and power had almost reached the mission's limit, as if leveling up became exceptionally fast once she left him. Dokja Kim understood she must have come after meeting with Liu Zhongga. Thinking about the foolish things Liu Zhongga would do in this cycle, Dokja Kim didn't dare delay and rushed to the island center to find the meteorite. On the way, he encountered Hyunseo Lee. The inconspicuous meat shield beside him had transformed into a Captain America-like figure after spending 3 days with Liu Zhongga. With no time to wonder how he accomplished this, Dokja Kim charged directly into the courtyard at the island's center. A huge red meteorite stood there, and guarding it was still Li Shuihua, except that after escaping infection, she had returned to Liu Zhongga's camp. When Dokja Kim arrived, he saw Liu Zhongga feeding the guide meteorite to the calamity, accelerating its hatching. Before he could stop it, the system prompted that the flood calamity had awakened. At the same time, everyone received the 5th task. task: eliminate the flood calamity Shen Yusheng. Mission reward: 100,000 points. Originally, Shen Yusheng had also been a follower of Yoo Joonghyuk, even regarding him as an idol for a time. However, the more times Yoo Joonghyuk returned, the more his feelings for his companions faded. This was like a player who had completed a single-player game several times. Everyone else was just an NPC to him. To gather more intelligence in his saint return, he left Shen Yusheng outside the timeline, making her endure thousands of years of torment alone, transforming into a calamity descending on the past Earth to tell him about future intelligence. In the second return, Yoo Joonghyuk also awakened her, using her intelligence to reach the task. So, he wanted to awaken her again in this return. However, he didn't know Shen Yusheng had turned to darkness during her long years of suffering. Once released this time, she would first kill Yoo Joonghyuk, then destroy the entire S-city. Yoo Joonghyuk completely failed to anticipate her attack, just as he was about to be pierced by a light cannon. Dokja unexpectedly flew in to take the fatal blow for him, and this direct hit cost him his life. Fortunately, his resurrection coin had arrived, just like when he was killed by the Calamity Flame Dragon. After consuming 100 karma points, the no-killing trait activated again. Dokja's consciousness left his physical form, activating the Omniscient reader's viewpoint. After consuming 100 karma points, the no-killing trait activated again. Dokja's consciousness left his physical form, activating the Omniscient reader's viewpoint's third stage. He intended to use this state to enter Yoo Joonghyuk's perspective, but a golden portal suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, countless monsters emerged from the portal, including level 5 beasts known as minor calamities. Dokja recognized this as the Beast King's exclusive skill, monsters, undoubtedly summoned by Shen Yusheng. Just as he tried to locate Yoo Joonghyuk, he saw him leap up and came behind Shen Yusheng. He activated his skill, Heaven-Breaking Sword Path. But this sword strike caused no damage, as the blade was easily trapped under Shen Yusheng's foot. To defeat her who had become a calamity require at least 10 more returns. However, Yoo Joonghyuk was completely blinded by rage. In his third return, his emotions hadn't yet been extinguished. With his previous experiences, he now fully regarded Dokja as a comrade, so despite knowing he was outmatched, he still attacked frantically. This left Shen Yusheng puzzled. In the 41st return, Yoo Joonghyuk never treated anyone as a comrade. Even Li Jihui was just a disposable rag to him. Thinking of this, she suddenly found it ironic. She didn't want to kill Yoo Joonghyuk, instead summoning 2 mummies to restrain him, because she wanted to kill each of his current companions one by one in front of him. Dokja knew things were dire and quickly tried to enter Yoo Joonghyuk's perspective, but was informed that the connection failed. Because connection required 2 conditions: consciousness separated from the body, and being in sync with the subject's mind. Yoo Joonghyuk had lost his rationality, his mind blank. Dokja hadn't expected him to value himself so much. However, after sensing everyone he knew, he found they were all busy fighting monsters, with no thought for him. While anxiously searching for a target, Dokja was shocked to discover there was one more person he could connect. Just then, Li Jihui broke through the monster encirclement. Seeing Shen Yusheng had killed Dokja, she roared that she would pay with her life. But Shen Yusheng merely smiled and said, "Sister Jihui, it's been a long time." However, after just a few exchanges, Li Jihui knelt wounded on the ground, although she activated Star Mark to summon the ghost worship. Shen Yusheng also summoned a Yulong Queen, using her skill to freeze the entire river surface. She grimaced while pinching Li Jihui's chin and said, "Sister, you have no idea how Yoo Joonghyuk will use you in the future, nor how he'll abandon you. You, who wanted his recognition all your life, will eventually die on the sea you love. Do you know what Yoo Joonghyuk said after losing you? Sea battles might be a bit harder from now on, that's all. But don't worry about that happening, because I'll let you die first." With that, Shen Yusheng grabbed her head and smashed it violently into the ground. Then she approached Hyunseo Lee, summoning an equally powerful monster. Hyunseo Lee had once been Yoo Joonghyuk's most loyal subordinate, saving everyone's lives several times. In the end, he turned to ashes in the Iron Blood Dragon's breath to protect Yoo Joonghyuk, and Yoo Joonghyuk said only one thing at that time: lost a useful shield. Shen Yusheng wanted to make these people feel the pain of abandonment she had experienced. However, to her surprise, Hyunseo Lee had no reaction to her words, because the person he followed wasn't Yoo Joonghyuk, but Dokja. Shen Yusheng only then noticed something off. This name had been repeatedly mentioned. Who exactly was this man? And where had the absolute throne gone? Before she could think further, an icy attack rapidly came toward her. She recognized this skill all too well, the Yulong Queen's cold breath. Looking up, she saw a little girl controlling the Yulong, and this girl was her younger self. After a moment of astonishment, she understood. She hadn't expected Yoo Joonghyuk to find her from this timeline. He likely wanted to kill her younger self to stop her present self, but she couldn't allow that to happen. Just as she was about to control her young self, several golden threads locked her hands. It was Sangyu who had intervened. Shen Yusheng was somewhat incredulous. This woman actually had Olympus's star mark. Even more surprising was Li Jiang controlling giant wings to pounce on her from the other side. She couldn't understand where all these extra people had come from, and they all kept shouting, "Oh, Dokja, who exactly was this man?" As this question lingered in her mind, her hand fired a light cannon, piercing straight through the giant wings. Li Jiang had no time to mourn for his giant wings. He immediately summoned his newly captured Antinous. This truly surprised Shen Yusheng. Before being teleported to Earth, she had destroyed Kronos. Yet someone could now command the insects from there. However, Antinous was merely a level 5 insect king, no match for her. Shen Yusheng directly quickly grabbed Lee Ji-young by the throat, lifting him into the air and said, "Tell me who Dokja Kim really is, and I might spare you." But the next second, a cannon blast passed over her head, precisely shattering the ice beneath her feet. Shen Yusheng recognized this as a ghost warship's bombardment, but she couldn't understand. She had just dealt deadly blows to Li Jihui and Hyunseo Lee, so how could they still be alive? Angrily about to strangle Lee Ji-young, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her arm. That's when she realized her hand seemed out of her control. At first she thought Antinous had infected her, but upon reflection that seemed impossible. Guides couldn't oppose calamities. At that moment, a voice echoed in her mind, "Stop, Shen Yusheng," and the source of the voice was Dokja Kim. It turned out the only person he found thinking about him was Shen Yusheng herself. Although he couldn't fully control Shen Yusheng's body, by using first-person perspective, he could interfere with her actions in subtle ways. It was because of his interference that Li Jihui survived. Shen Yusheng nearly broke down hearing Dokja Kim's voice. For some reason, it gave her a sense of nostalgia, but it also caused her personality and memories to become chaotic. She screamed for Dokja Kim to get out of her body. The young Shen Yusheng nearby seemed to notice something. As Dokja Kim's avatar, she could sense he was inside her future self's body. She rushed forward and grabbed her own hand. At the moment of contact, lightning burst from their fingertips. Dokja Kim, acting as a bridge, merged the memories of the two Shen Yushengs from different timelines. In an instant, memories that didn't belong to her appeared in Shen Yusheng's mind. The emotions missing from the 41st return seemed to be compensated for in her other self. Her expression was both ferocious and pained. Instinctively wanting to reject this, her hand couldn't let go. In a fit of rage, she grabbed her right hand and violently tore it off. Due to the extreme pain, Dokja Kim was forcibly expelled from Shen Yusheng's body, but he also felt that if he had held on a bit longer, Shen Yusheng might have self-destructed. However, thinking of her tragic experience, a voice inside reminded him this wasn't the ending he wanted. At this point, the no-killing king's trait activated, and Dokja Kim's body began to regenerate. Surprisingly, despite not connecting with Yoo Joonghyuk, he still received the reward of using the Omniscient reader's Viewpoint's third stage. Just as he finished dressing, he sensed killing intent behind him. Yoo Joonghyuk, seeing him resurrect, was wide-eyed with shock. He said, "She didn't tell me earlier you had a resurrection skill, making me waste my emotions." Dokja Kim had no time to explain, and could only defeat the mummies controlling him first. Saving Shen Yusheng required the involvement of this instigator. Shen Yusheng was now kneeling on the ground. Blood from her severed arm stained the ice beneath her. Seeing Dokja Kim arrive with Yoo Joonghyuk, everyone thought he was coming to kill Shen Yusheng and cleared a path for him. However, Dokja Kim turned and clearly announced to everyone that he would not kill the flood calamity, nor would he let anyone else kill her. At these words, not only were Li Jihui and the others confused, but Shen Yusheng also let out a mocking laugh. She said, "You say you'll spare me? What a joke. What right do you have to pity me? The 41st return I once lived in is gone. There's no one for my memories in this world. How could you understand that feeling?" But she suddenly froze mid-sentence, because she saw Yoo Joonghyuk in the crowd. All returnees are lonely single-player gamers. To reach their desired endings, they inevitably must abandon some once-cherished people. So Yoo Joonghyuk could understand her feelings. But he was also not the Yoo Joonghyuk from the 41st return. He said, "If you want, you can live to hate me. Treat this as your new return." Shen Yusheng's pupils trembled. In that moment, she seemed to truly have hope for survival. But immediately, this hope was extinguished by a lightning bolt as the ram-horned monster appeared, saying, "I didn't expect you to cause trouble again. The 5th task clearly requires killing the calamity. I hope you haven't forgotten the consequences of violating tasks." However, Dokja Kim coldly interrupted, "Of course we'll kill her. Just not now. The task clearly states there's no time limit for eliminating the calamity, which means her life or death is up to us." The ram-horned monster's face darkened as it said, You really know how to exploit loopholes. But this time, your cleverness will be your downfall." Then it pulled up the system interface. The system notified them that the middle-level boblin had intervened in the task. According to the task contract, control over the flood calamity would transfer to the middle-level boblin. Dokja Kim hadn't anticipated this. The contract control should be with Starstream. How could it transfer to a goblin? The ram-horned monster then issued a command, using the task's forced execution right to reset the flood calamity's personality to absolute evil. Seeing Shen Yusheng opening the monster gate again, Yoo Joonghyuk decisively drew his sword, but his target wasn't the calamity. It was young Shen Yusheng. Dokja Kim understood what he was trying to do, resolutely standing in front of him, warning word by word, "Don't touch the child." Even in dire straits, he didn't want to sacrifice young Shen Yusheng. Besides, there was still one last path, defeating the calamity through strength. After Shen Yusheng, corrupted by evil, fired a light cannon at everyone. She was shocked speechless by what she saw. Dokja Kim's white coat transformed into wings, firmly protecting everyone behind him. This was the skill he acquired after connecting with Shen Yusheng, Beast King's sensitivity. The white wings, like an angel's, shielded everyone from the fatal blow. Yoo Joonghyuk said reluctantly, "Though I don't know where you stole this skill from, it's not enough." Dokja Kim remained silent, only charging forward, using his wings to accelerate while activating Bookmark, and stacking Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint first stage, Prediction, and second stage, Mind Reading. Beneath Shen Yusheng's ferocious expression, he could hear her true thoughts. "It's okay, please kill me." Dokja Kim gritted his teeth, deleting Namwoon Kim from Bookmark slot first, and inserting Evil Eliminator, Jung Shi-won. The system prompted that his understanding of this character was quite high, allowing him to use some of the character's skills. scales. A huge red scale appeared behind him. It was Zheng Xiwan's signature skill, Judgment Time. In that instant, the absolute good faction constellations watching the livestream panicked. This skill could only be used by their appointed judge and required the consent of all absolute good faction members. But Dokja Kim wasn't afraid of their disapproval, because the person before him was designated as evil by the constellations. Soon the scales began to tilt. A voice in Dokja Kim's mind commanded him to punish evil, to eliminate all wickedness. Judgment Time was originally a Valkyrie skill, so the user received Archangel protection. As long as the enemy was evil, defeat was impossible. Shen Yusheng knew its danger level. As the sword edge approached, she planted one hand on the ground and jumped. With a backward leap, she hid among the monsters she had summoned. Dokja Kim's bookmark could only last 30 minutes, so he called on everyone to clear a path for him. Yoo Joonghyuk used his skill, Resurrection, effect, clear all injuries for 30 minutes. At this moment, he willingly became Dokja Kim's sword. The two charged into the explosive airwaves. Shen Yusheng took a deep breath and exhaled a tiger-shaped flame. Dokja Kim recognized this as the Beast King's breath, impossible to block with ordinary weapons, so he again activated Beast King's sensitivity. While blocking the flames, Yoo Joonghyuk leaped to Shen Yusheng's head, but his target wasn't Shen Yusheng, but the ice beneath her feet. Losing her footing, Shen Yusheng jumped into the air. Both men executed flying kicks. After gaining momentum from the kicks, they quickly turned back, each gathering their strongest killing move. In the next second, blue and purple forces violently collided, seemingly evenly matched. But despairingly, the evil transformed Shen Yusheng's magical power was comparable to nuclear power. Yoo Joonghyuk quickly failed. Just as he looked up, the next beast breath arrived. After an explosion, the two were inevitably defeated. Shen Yusheng's inner voice murmured, "You should have killed my past self. How will you fight me now?" Dokja Kim stubbornly turned his head and said, "Don't worry about that, because the person who will confront you is just arriving." As soon as he finished, a violent explosion destroyed the monster group behind them. When the smoke cleared, a figure illuminated by the red light of the scale appeared. She said, "Us, you can rest now. I'll end this damned task." The person arriving was Zheng Xiwan. After seeing the white incandescent flame attached to her blade, Dokja Kim knew this war was as good as won. This was one of the highest level star marks, with destructive power comparable to Monkey King, while also having special effectiveness against all beings under the Archangel's blessing. Its name was Hellfire, and the support constellation was Uriel, the fiery judge. Shen Yusheng tried to release her beast breath, but was cut in two by Zheng Xiwan's hunter blade. White and purple flames collided and burned on the battlefield, the erupting light too intense to look at directly. They seemed evenly matched, but as a sharp dagger pierced through her body, the battle ended without suspense. From the moment she was transformed into absolute evil, she had no chance of defeating Zheng Xiwan. But it was precisely because of Hellfire's evil eliminating property that she regained her self-awareness as she approached death. Through the second stage of the Omniscient reader's viewpoint, Dokja Kim could hear her inner voice. She was saying, "It hurts so much, I don't want to disappear like this." When she saw Yoo Joonghyuk walk to her side, her face showed a glimmer of hope, wanting to hear him say those words before she left. But Yoo Joonghyuk only asked one question: which demon helped you cross the world line? Because goblins couldn't directly possess control over calamities unless she had sold herself to a demon. Disappointment flashed across Shen Yusheng's face, but then she smiled again. This was the captain she knew. Shen Yusheng spoke, "The great demon on the horizon. That's the demon's name. But never fight him. You can't possibly win against him." Dokja Kim couldn't bear to watch and wanted to remind Yoo Joonghyuk to say some words to keep her. But suddenly he heard Lu's repeated inner monologue, "I will avenge you." When he looked down at Shen Yusheng again, he understood that some things don't need to be spoken aloud to be known. This was also the first time he realized that the Omniscient reader's viewpoint might not know everything. And Shen Yusheng's last words were for her younger self. "I envy you. Please live well." The constellations in the livestream let out a collective sigh. Dokja Kim slowly knelt beside her, using his last magic to activate the Beast King's sensitivity. Only through this method could he tell her something that neither constellations nor goblins could hear. Upon hearing it, tears burst from Shen Yusheng's eyes, as if she couldn't believe it. Then she turned to white ashes within these words. The ashes, along with the sleet, gradually dispersed into the sky. After a long silence, Bai Jing said to the ram-horned monster, "You can end the mission now, or I'll do it for you." The ram-horned monster was clearly unwilling, but before it could say anything, a blue portal suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, two armored goblins walked out. The ram-horned monster backed away in fear. It recognized these as supervisors from the enforcement department, and as expected, they were there to arrest it. Because it had used Task's forced execution right to interfere with the normal process of the main mission. The ram-horned monster argued that using enforcement powers was fine, as long as most constellations agreed. I was also considering the channel's entertainment value. However, it was interrupted before finishing. Before you interfered with the mission, some constellations were indeed stirring things up, looking forward to the plot. But haven't you noticed they've all run away now? In the end, they're just thrill-seeking constellations. Hurting old viewers' feelings for thrill-seeking constellations. We seriously doubt if you still deserve the title of mid-level goblin. The ram-horned monster was at a loss, still wanting to plead, but Dokja Kim stopped it. Before you pass judgment on it, I request a private meeting. The so-called private meeting was a one-on-one meeting with a goblin requested through VIP status at the goblin shop. During this time, their conversation and actions wouldn't be disturbed by anyone. Dokja Kim had just given Bai Jing 100,000 to upgrade to membership to satisfy this condition, and the one he wanted to meet privately was the ram-horned monster. The enforcement officers paused for a moment, then revealed pleased expressions. As if knowing what would happen next, they agreed to give Dokja Kim 20 minutes. They were quickly transported to a barrier in the sky. Dokja Kim's purpose, of course, wasn't to chat with it. It was to fulfill one of his promises to Shen Yusheng, to avenge her. The ram-horned monster was the direct culprit in her death, though they couldn't kill anyone in the barrier. That also meant Dokja Kim could beat it within an inch of its life. The ram-horned monster took a punch, blood streaming from its nose. It had never been hit before in its life, let alone by a mere human. It advised Dokja Kim, young man, don't be too impulsive. There are rules in the barrier. Using violence once costs 500 points. Dokja Kim replied indifferently, do you think how a mere avatar like me became a platinum member? Thanks to your damn Starstream broadcasting, points are the last thing I'm short of. Only the constellations could see this scene, and Monkey King quickly sent a reward. But Dokja Kim returned it, because this time he wasn't acting for the broadcast. He was sincerely fulfilling his promise to Shen Yusheng. For this, he asked the ram-horned monster one question: where is Shen Yusheng's soul now? 10 minutes later, the barrier finally dissipated. The two enforcement officers were satisfied enough. The injuries weren't too severe. They could still torture it when they got back. In fact, these two were called by Baijing at Dokja Kim's request. He'd paid them well, so they were accommodating. The ram-horned monster hadn't said anything useful in the barrier. Although the great demon on the horizon had transferred the contract to him, the contract connection was severed due to the Archangel's power. He only knew Shen Yusheng's soul had entered the underworld and was about to fall into the world-line labyrinth. By then, even the underworld king couldn't save her. Baijing, being the witness for this complaint, and having just been promoted to mid-level goblin, also needed to visit the administration bureau. During this time, it would have someone take over its channel, and it warned Dokja Kim not to cause any more trouble. But that was impossible because before Shen Yusheng died, Dokja Kim had promised to do everything possible to bring her back. Dokja Kim turned to Sangha Yu, asking her to summon the Olympian gods once more. Among the constellations that could establish connections with the underworld, there was exactly one in the Olympus Nebula. However, after entering the possession state this time, Sangha Yu was forced offline after a while. Her face also turned quite unpleasant, because Ariadne had scolded her, saying the wealthy father of the night wasn't someone she could casually summon. The wealthy father of the night was one of the three major Olympian gods, the codename for Hades, the king of the underworld. Dokja Kim certainly hadn't thought he could directly invite him. To go to the underworld, he needed to ask another constellation. Soon, night fell, and the goblin cover for Beijing sent the mission rewards. There were three main contributors to the fifth mission. As one of them, Dokja Kim acquired the lie detection skill he had longed for. The sixth mission would begin in 3 days. Yoo Joonghyuk left without saying goodbye again, presumably to enhance his skills and equipment. Zheng Xiuan brought good news. She had found lots of alcoholic beverages. Since the first mission began, they hadn't relaxed in a long time. She suggested taking this opportunity to drink to their heart's content. Of course, except for the miners, who could only drink soda. Everyone sat around the campfire under the stars, chatting. Soon, several people fell asleep. Surprisingly, Sangha Yu, who had consumed 4 bottles of alcohol, remained clear-headed. Noticing Dokja Kim's surprise, she smiled and said, this alcohol tolerance was developed at the company because getting drunk would be troublesome. But today with you here, it should be fine, right? As it turned out, to find Shen Yusheng's soul, Dokja Kim deliberately got himself drunk. He stayed alone with Sangha Yu until late at night. Just as the atmosphere began to grow ambiguous, with the two getting closer, the fourth wall suddenly activated. Dokja Kim immediately sobered up. The glass in his hand fell to the ground. The golden liquid gradually formed a line of text. What a spoil sport. The one who typed this was one of the Olympian gods, Dionysus, the god of wine. Dokja Kim had gotten himself drunk to meet him. Under the gaze of the otherworldly divine ranks in the sky, the Olympian gods would no longer easily descend. They could only communicate indirectly through such means. What's most widely known about Dionysus was his birth. His father was the chief god Zeus, but his mother was the wife of Zeus's brother Hades, Persephone. She was also the god of spring rain and sowing. Though the relationship seemed chaotic, it wasn't much compared to Zeus's other scandals. The reason Dokja Kim wanted to talk to him was because of his relationship with Hades. Hades ruled the underworld and governed all deceased souls. Only by going there could he resurrect Shen Yusheng. The wine god gladly agreed. He loved nothing more than causing trouble for Hades. Through his mother's authority, he could let Dokja Kim tour the underworld for 12 hours. But if he couldn't return within this time, he would be trapped there forever. As soon as he finished speaking, Dokja Kim felt dizzy. He instructed Sangha Yu to wake the others, then lost consciousness and fell to the ground. When he woke up again, he found himself in different clothes, already in the underworld. He thought he would be at the entrance, the Styx River, but instead found himself in what looked like a prison. Many prisoners were sifting sand and carrying stones, building scaffolding around a giant robot. Seeing Dokja Kim suddenly appear, a white-haired man excitedly walked over. He greeted Dokja Kim like an old friend, saying he knew he would come here sooner or later. Dokja Kim didn't recognize him at first, but when he lifted the man's bangs, Dokja Kim was stunned. It was Namwoon Kim. Thinking about it though, it wasn't strange. The underworld was the destination for all the dead, including those he had killed. However, surprisingly, Namwoon Kim showed no hostility because he thought Dokja Kim had also died and been sent here. Everyone was dead, so past grudges needn't be pursued. Dokja Kim didn't believe him at first, but his lie detector showed he was telling the truth. Namwoon Kim had a look of seeing through worldly matters. His Chunabu behavior in life had been forced. Now with food and shelter provided and no school to attend, he could even build models when bored. board, much better than at home. The only job was to build the giant robot nearby. Speaking of which, Dokja Kim noticed the robot was actually the Divine Giant. The Divine Giant was a weapon created by the gods during the Battle of the Giants. He hadn't expected the Divine Giant still existed. Just then, two judges suddenly came to the prison announcing a surprise inspection of everyone because they had received news that an illegal intruder had appeared in the underworld, a living soul that had crossed the Styx River. If Hades found out, the consequences would be severe. They urged that person to step forward. Seeing Dokja Kim's guilty expression, Na Moon Kim said, "They can't be talking about you, can they?" Dokja Kim knew he couldn't hide it anymore and quickly recalled the underworld plot from the novel. Yoo Joonghyuk had also visited the underworld in the middle and late parts. Perhaps he could imitate him, but he soon realized that wouldn't work. Yoo Joonghyuk had purely relied on his combat strength. He didn't have those conditions himself. However, thinking about this, he suddenly remembered that the failure condition was staying in the underworld for 12 hours. It didn't say can't be caught. So he directly stood up from the crowd, honestly admitting he was the one they were looking for. The two judges' expressions changed. One of them instantly flashed behind Dokja Kim, wanting to execute him on the spot. However, Dokja Kim said, "If you kill me now, you will definitely lose the Battle of the Giants." This statement indeed made them stop. Dokja Kim continued, "Go tell the wealthy father of the night that I know how to complete that Divine Giant." Since it involved the outcome of the Battle of the Giants, although the judges were suspicious, they couldn't make the decision. They could only temporarily detain Dokja Kim in prison and take him to the palace of the Underworld King. Along the way, the reward notifications he received kept ringing, but this was understandable. After all, this was considered the constellation's private territory, which other constellations normally couldn't see. Just as he stepped through the palace gates, his clothes instantly changed back to their original form. At the same time, a woman's voice echoed in the hall. Interesting. It's been a long time since a living person came here, and bringing so many noisy viewers too. Dokja Kim thought to himself, terrible, but still maintained composure and said, "It's an honor to meet you, Queen of the Darkest Spring." This title was Persephone's codename when watching the Starstream broadcasting. She knew some things about Dokja Kim, but not much, which was why she wanted to meet him personally instead of the Underworld King. She was sitting at the end of a long table. Considering that mortals couldn't withstand the impact of a deity's true form, she borrowed an image familiar to Dokja Kim. That was Sang-Yu in a cheongsam with spaghetti straps. Dokja Kim blushed, thinking, how does she know I like this? But after a moment of panic, he got to the point, stating he had come to find a soul. If the Underworld King would help, he could tell them how to shorten the time to complete the Divine Giant. However, the Spring Goddess scoffed after hearing this, saying that although the battle was important, even without his help, they could eventually complete the Divine Giant. Then she changed her tone, saying if he could tell her where he learned this method, she might consider it. But this was exactly what Dokja Kim couldn't agree to. Telling them would be acknowledging the existence of the 3 ways to survive in a doomed world, which would get him blocked by Starstream. However, seeing his reaction, the Spring Goddess seemed to guess something, muttering a word to herself. The constellations who heard it immediately erupted, unable to believe it was true. Dokja Kim was equally disbelieving. He had clearly heard the Spring Goddess say something, but it was censored. Logically, words that would be censored were information not yet revealed in the plot. But he had read the entire novel. How could there be something he didn't know? While he was puzzled, the Spring Goddess lifted his chin. She then teleported right next to him, saying, if you still won't tell me, then let me eat you. You look quite delicious. Dokja Kim knew she might really eat him. Constellations could devour both humans and souls. Constellations grew stronger by eating souls or humans. If she ate him, it would increase her fame. Dokja Kim fearfully said, harming an avatar executing a mission. Do you want to start a war with the constellations watching over me? As soon as he spoke, the system displayed a window. Monkey King and Uriel expressed their eagerness, and the secret strategist was also fanning the flames. The Spring Goddess was instantly displeased, saying, all mythological level constellations, don't think I fear you. Just as a divine war was about to erupt, Dokja Kim said, if you eat me now, you'll spend the rest of your life in regret, because you'll definitely think, if I hadn't eaten him then, he would have become more delicious. These words sparked some interest in the Spring Goddess. She asked, why are you so confident? Dokja Kim answered with dignity, because even without support constellation, I could stand against a being who reversed time. Even without the help of otherworldly gods, I eliminated the Returner and stopped 3 of the 5 calamities. I could even enter the underworld with a living soul. Just look at the current situation. Don't you think this is like courtship? The first few sentences were fine, but the last shocking statement left the Spring Goddess stunned. Dokja Kim explained, please don't misunderstand. I'm certainly not courting you, but rather your husband. The Spring Goddess was thoroughly amused by these words, admitting this human was indeed interesting. So she sat on the table, crossing her legs, looking down at him with a superior gaze. Then, I'll give you a task. If you succeed, I'll help you find the soul you're looking for. Dokja Kim breathed a sigh of relief, but had an ominous feeling. It wouldn't be the legendary 12 trials, would it? Fortunately, the Spring Goddess didn't make it difficult. She said he only needed to cut off a snake's head. That snake would appear in the 6th mission. With that, she snapped her fingers, bringing up the live stream of the mission area. There were 2 people in the frame. When Dokja Kim saw them clearly, his jaw dropped, because it was Kang Bidu and Han Xiying. Dokja Kim hadn't expected they would team up and take on the 6th main mission ahead of time. The 6th mission involved joint participation from H country and R country. The Spring Goddess's test for Dokja Kim was to kill the 8-headed serpent from R country's mythology and bring back its head. Then she would agree to find Shen Yushang's soul. After the deal was made, Dokja Kim returned to the surface from the underworld. Seeing Sang-Yu, who had just fallen asleep after watching over him all night, he felt somewhat guilty. After all, he had spent the night talking with a goddess who had taken Sang-Yu's appearance. At this moment, Zheng Xiuan and Hyunseo Lee came over, reminding Dokja Kim that they needed to prepare to leave. Last night's announcement for the 6th mission had asked all survivors to gather at Longshan Station. When they arrived, they found the place already crowded with people. This mission wasn't mandatory. Representatives from H country and R country would be selected to fight, while others could watch the live stream outside. Since R country's capital D city was ahead in progress, their representatives entered the mission area first. Dokja Kim hadn't expected that after the devastation of 5 missions, S city would still have so many people. Just then, a familiar face came over to greet Dokja Kim. Dokja Kim remembered him. This person was the neutral king from the 7 Kings War, Quan Radao. Although S city was now a world without a king due to the destruction of the absolute throne, the former king still held prestige among the survivors, naturally having the right to allocate participation spots. He invited Dokja Kim to a tent. Inside, besides the Maitreya king and Min Juan, there was also an ambitious politician. Because he led the Hanjiang forces, which weren't small, he was allowed to join the discussion. Additionally, what surprised Dokja Kim most was that the King of Wanderers was also present, but he pretended not to see her, sitting across from her with a gloomy face. They were discussing the selection of participants. S city initially had only 10 spots. Each king wanted their people to enter the battle. After all, securing a foothold early in the mission would give them control later on. It was essentially a game of musical chairs. As they argued heatedly, Dokja Kim coldly reminded them, "Your argument is meaningless because someone hasn't arrived yet." Just as he finished speaking, the tent door was kicked open. Everyone was startled to attention. They had indeed forgotten the most important person, Yoo Joonghyuk. Yoo Joonghyuk glanced at Dokja Kim, then said in an irrefutable tone, "I'll decide the participants. Do you have any objections?" Those who dared object were already under his foot. No one dared to oppose. Min Ji-won glared at Dokja Kim resentfully, thinking, no wonder he was so calm. He had found a powerful backer. Now the spots would definitely be predetermined. Dokja Kim thought the same. After all their time together through thick and thin, his place in Yoo Joonghyuk's heart was already self-evident. So he just waited quietly for the announcement. But Yoo Joonghyuk was unceremonious. The first spot went to himself. Second person, Li Jihui. Third, Li Shuihua. Fourth, Hyunseo Lee. At this point, Dokja Kim's expression stiffened, but he still comforted himself. Maybe he was saving me for the last spot. However, Yoo Joonghyuk quickly shattered his illusion. Fifth, Zheng Xiuan. Sixth, Li Jiang. Then he frowned at Dokja Kim. After a long pause, he said, "You can decide the rest yourselves," and then left. Dokja Kim, who was eating, almost choked. What was going on? Why did he turn on me so quickly? Li Jihui reminded him from the side, "My master went looking for you in the early morning. You didn't do something to upset him, did you?" Dokja Kim thought carefully. That time should have been before he went to the underworld, when he was drinking with Sang-Yu. Under the wine god's influence, he had gotten very close to her. Could Yoo Joonghyuk have seen that? Zheng Xiuan had a sudden realization. This is what they call catching someone in the act. No wonder. But her support constellation Uriel seriously corrected her, saying this should be called comradeship. Speaking of comradeship, Hyunseo Lee was wide awake. As a tough guy who had always been among men, he indeed empathized with this sentiment. It was like seeing a brother who had fought life and death battles suddenly blinded by a woman. This feeling was very disappointing. Dokja Kim was bewildered, but it seemed to make sense. The Yoo Joonghyuk in the novel had said similar things, but he and Sang-Yu were innocent. Fortunately, the Maitreya king coughed and said, "Since the hegemon has already decided 6 participants, let's determine the remaining 4 through group elimination battles, to save arguments." Dokja Kim agreed. So, 3 minutes later, the Maitreya king was once again beaten up with a swollen face. He and Min Ji-won conceded. Quan Radao decisively gave up. He had thought Yoo Joonghyuk was formidable enough, not expecting Dokja Kim to be so powerful too. Dokja Kim consoled them, "Let's wait outside first. There will soon be a second batch of spots." Of the 4 spots, he first gave one to himself and one to Shen Yusheng. He didn't announce the remaining 2 publicly, but asked everyone to leave first. He has something to talk to the King of Wanderers. Although he didn't want to face this woman, he ultimately needed her power. At this point, the King of Wanderers removed her mask, with a smile curling at her lips. "I never expected you to make so many friends. Mother is very proud." Dokja Kim said, "After leaving you, a murderer mother, of course I could make friends." The reason he called her a murderer was because his father was killed by her. Dokja Kim's father not only drank and gambled, but also committed domestic violence daily. When his mother couldn't take it anymore, she killed him with a kitchen knife, leading to her imprisonment. If it had just been that, Dokja Kim wouldn't have hated her. But in prison, she wrote a novel based on the story of killing his father, titled Undiary of an Underground Murderer. The novel became a national bestseller once published. Dokja Kim didn't understand why she would publicize such a thing. From that day on, reporters hounded him daily about his family situation. Classmates mocked him as the murderer's son. Relatives from his father's side questioned and insulted him. This shaped his introverted personality, spending long periods only reading novels. Unexpectedly, this led him to the novel 3 Ways to Survive in a Doomed World, and even more unexpectedly, to meeting his mother again this way. But honestly, he didn't hate her that much anymore. The reason he wanted to talk to her privately was to borrow someone from her, a prisoner grandmother codenamed 406. Her support constellation would play a crucial role in this mission. 10 minutes later, Dokja Kim hurried to the mission's teleportation point with his people. Yoo Joonghyuk wasn't surprised to see him arrive, but asked, "Why are you so late?" They needed to teleport to another world for the battle. Each teleportation crystal could transport 2 people, so they needed to form pairs. pairs. Yoo Joonghyuk paired with Lee Shuihua, Lee Jeong paired with Lee Jihui, Zhang Xiuan paired with Hyunseo Lee. Dokja Kim decided to pair with Shen Yusheng this time. The old grandmother paired with Sangha Yu. Just as everyone was preparing to activate the crystals, the rookie goblin substituting for Beijing suddenly appeared with bad news. S-City's delegation quota wasn't 10 people but 8, because during the previous mission, for unknown reasons, 2 people had entered the instance early. Dokja Kim then remembered. This must refer to Han Xiying and Kong Bidu. He wondered how they got in. At this point, Sangha Yu voluntarily raised her hand to withdraw from this mission. Seeing this, Zhang Xiuan also decided to withdraw. There would still be a second batch of spots anyway. With their strength, she and Sangha Yu were sure to get spots. So Hyunseo Lee became the old grandmother's partner. Before leaving, Dokja Kim instructed Sangha Yu to inform the King of Wanderers to be careful of the neutral king Quan Ridao. After crossing through the teleportation entrance, Dokja Kim and Shen Yusheng arrived in a jungle. The system sent a prompt. Main mission, the abandoned world, has begun. There was no one else around. It seemed they had been teleported to different areas. Just then, Shen Yusheng noticed a group of cavalry charging toward them. She looked surprised because these people were only as big as her palm.